Sup, my fellas, don't forget to leave feedback and enjoy the story. A girl wearing a dress hears screams and runs to find out what's happening at the start of the story. She knocks and inquires as she opens the door. He turns to her and says, "I need a healer," in a shaking voice. His leg turned black and the skin on his leg began to throb with veins. He begs her to bring a healer to him right away as he sobs. This person arrived at the settlement a few hours earlier. His leg had been hurt. He keeps hold of his cut hand as he makes his way down the street. He is overjoyed that he made it to the settlement and will soon be saved. Roz Tucker is an intrepid traveler from the Azel continent. He believes that the Black Wolves are entirely to blame. He was aware that they traveled in packs, but he wished there were fewer of them. He had no idea that he would come across a flock of 30 people. He was already outmatched in strength by these wolves. Additionally, they attacked in a group and he was helpless to contain them. He must first borrow money from the Adventurers Guild in order to pay for his healing. Roz signed the document after spending some time at the Adventurers Guild. This is a confirmation of payment, the girl claims. His next reward will be reduced by the amount he borrowed. He must be aware that interest is paid separately. He appears to be in bad shape, so it would be better if he recovered here. Roz concurs and believes that the girl is correct. Of course, it will be better this way. He says his head is spinning as he walks away. Raises wonders what would happen if he passed away before getting to the church as he leaves the Adventurers Guild. He hears a call from the person he was with in the Adventurers Guild. When Roz hears a voice, the man asks if he needs a healer. Is that correct? He need not go all the way. The man asks to be allowed to cure him for a small fee, and Roz wonders who he is. He can pay once he has recovered. Roz considers this man to be highly suspicious. He claims that because healers are paid so well, he should at the very least display his healer mark first. Many fake healers have appeared. As a result, the healer's sign appeared. The Adventurers Guild offers this special skill. Roz believes that some individuals are attempting to display the genuine badge. What is he doing? He queries. He was asked to display his badge. The man claims that the Adventurers Guild didn't grant him a badge because he informed them that he couldn't heal. As he departs, Roz queries whether he is still a healer despite not knowing how to do so. Without a doubt, this man is insane. After looking over Roz's body, the man claims that claws were used to inflict the wounds. It was a strong beast based on how it was dismantled. He must have fought nearby because the wounds appear to be recent. Roz stopped when he said something unexpectedly. The man queries whether a black-maned wolf was responsible for the wound on his right arm, and it must have occurred as a result of his ankle slamming into a tree. Roz turns to the man and questions how he was aware of everything. The man claims that even though he has no sign, he makes money by helping people. He will have to spend 600,000 gold to see the priest, but only 300,000 to see the adventurer healer. Why does he say this? Roz queries. He claims to be able to cure him for just 100,000 gold. Roz believes this man is unquestionably a con artist. He departs and advises him not to waste his life in such a way. He's a con artist. Did he really decide to leave? The guy queries. He cannot be helped by holy power. What is he saying? Roz wonders. He claims it will be excruciatingly painful. He will be able to find him because he was staying at that hotel if his wound hurts while he is sleeping. If they even stayed at the same hotel, Roz queries. After spending some time in the church, it appears that this man is insane, so he had better be avoided. The wound on Roz's arm starts to heal after the man casts a spell. The priest claims that Mr. Ivar's power has healed all of his wounds. It costs 620,000 gold to pay. Ivar will be responsible for defending this intrepid traveler in his future adventures. For the work he had completed, Roz thanked him. After leaving the church, he concludes that while priests are expensive, they are unquestionably effective. Although he does not feel entirely well, he is confident that he will soon feel better. His leg is beginning to change color that night, and his veins are swollen. Roz is unsure of the significance of the situation. He yells in agony and tells the girl how much his leg hurts. She needs to get a healer to him right away. He questions why this is happening to him given that he was healed by that kind priest. Why is that so? He suddenly recalled the individual who had recently claimed that the holy power would not be able to assist him and that if his injury hurt in a dream, he could locate him. As per Roz, other healers are ineffective. That person promised to be here. The person who cannot heal is this. At least he could state his name. The man claims that he forewarned him about how painful it would be. He's here, which is good. The healer who is unable to heal has shown up. He enters the space and greets him with a smile. Miss Julia needs to let him take care of his wound. Having agreed and thanked him, the girl exits the room. How did he feel after such an expensive treatment? The man next to him inquires as he settles in. Can't you see it? Asks Roz. He's a true healer, am I right? He requests that something be done about his leg because he is in great pain. It will cost him 300,000 gold pieces, the man claims, and he must pay up front. Roz wonders if he must pay $300,000 after being shocked. If he doesn't want to be healed, he can choose to ignore it, the man says. Roz claims that earlier he had stated that the cost of the healing would be 150,000. Why did the cost double overnight? The man claims that this is the case because the circumstance has gotten 3 times worse. He can contact another healer if he believes it to be too expensive. Roz snatches him up by the edge of his clothing and promises to give him his sword. That is all he can say at this time. Maybe that will do for now. He will be able to sell this sword for at least 200,000 gold. Is it really worth $200,000? The guy wonders as he examines the swords. Although he claims that the sword was handled roughly, it is clear that he valued the weapon highly. He declares that he will take him to treatment for 200,000 gold when the sword in his hand starts to vanish. Roz thanked the man and expressed surprise that his sword had vanished. He queries whether he might perish as a result. He claims that he will now examine him. He squeezes his leg while claiming that if it were something fatal, he would simply kidnap him and treat him. As far as he could tell, there were some conditions that a holy force could not cure. Poison is one of those things. He receives something from him that he is to take. What is it? Asks Roz. It's black lingonberries, the man claims. When applied to a wound, the poison in this plant's leaves and stem paralyzes the victim. The presence of black-maned wolves close to this plant is due in part to this. Black lingonberries are very helpful to wolves because they drive prey into these bushes to calm a person. Roz queries whether he does not mean that he won't be able to walk any longer. He implores the physician to save him. Can nothing be done to change the situation? The healer holds up a vial filled with a dark liquid. There is only one way, he says as he places it on the table. Roz is ecstatic and asks the doctor in a shaking voice how he wants to apply it. He was extremely terrified as the doctor held a knife in his hands. This antidote, according to the guy, should be applied to an open wound. He too would prefer to heal as much as possible without touching. There is only one way to start, even though he doesn't know who gave him the treatment but did a great job of healing him. Roz affirms that the doctor is correct as he recalls that priest. The man claims that, as he had previously stated, he lacks the ability to heal. He can't, not that he doesn't want to, that would be a more accurate statement. He can scream all he wants because he doesn't have any painkillers. Roz, who is prepared to sob, tells the man to hold off because he is not yet ready. If he moves, he claims, it will only get worse. He makes a cut along the poisoned area of the leg and then administers the remedy. To repeat it, he advises. He simply needs to let go or exercise patience. He believes that using healing is acceptable, but is this the case always? He can try any other techniques if he is unsure how to use healing. The healer of the Azul continent is probably this guy, Kang Seunghyun. When he opened his eyes 3 years ago, he was in an unknown cave. A new class has allegedly been assigned to the system window. This scene is exactly the same as other times that Kang Seunghyun has seen it. His class is a healer, according to the system window, despite the mages and ubiquitous monsters. What does a healer mean? Inquires Kang Seunghyun. Fortunately, he is not the only person who was dragged here from the ground. He believes that it appears that this is not the earth and that he is in another world. Converse with one another. Now, what should they do? They must figure out a way to return home. They just got going. How are they already considering going back? She is correct, claims the other girl. She even enjoys it here because of the magic. The man claims he has a family and must come back as soon as possible. Kang Seunghyun thinks this situation is very similar to a fantasy book, especially this window of statistics. According to the system window, his class is most likely a healer. Additionally, there is a scale for inventory, strength, and endurance. He has 3 points for progress but none for current. He is curious about the question mark at the conclusion of his class. The other girl stands up and claims to be correct. They first need to figure out how to live. Although the monsters are terrifying, if they work together, then defeating them will not be so difficult. Each of them has already received their class and skill right. Kang Seunghyun wonders if they have the skills. The skills window is displayed. He has the cut skill, which allows you to cut anything with a sharp object. The God of Languages skill that allows you to automatically translate any language. The skill of an observant look because of which nothing will hide from his gaze. What does it all mean? Wonders Kang Seunghyun. Healer is undoubtedly his class, but at the moment he lacks a healing skill. Kang Seunghyun wipes the blood off his hands and says that he has finished his treatment. He shouldn't move for about 3 days, but the wound will recover quickly. Ross is overjoyed to still be alive. He is very grateful to him and says that if it were not for the doctor, he would have already died. Kang Seunghyun says that he already told him that it's not fatal. He looks down at Ross's leg and thinks the wound is starting to look better in the meantime. Is he really capable of healing even without the healing skill? Ross says that he is very ashamed of the fact that he cursed at him yesterday and called him a swindler. Kang Seunghyun says everything is fine. He often hears this, so he's already used to it. Who could trust a healer who doesn't have a healing skill? Ross thinks this doctor has a very broad soul. According to Kang Seunghyun, he finds it amusing to hear people ask him to save them and say things like that. He works because of this. Ross believes it is worthwhile to forget that he thought of him as a man with a broad soul. Evidently, he misinterpreted him. Bitsbull after spending some time in the restaurant. When Kang Seunghyun descends the stairs, she approaches Miss Julia and requests one hotel suite. She says she will finish one hotel set soon and nods to Mr. Khan. The Bitsbull hotel employee is named Julia. While waiting for food, Kang Seunghyun wonders if he should fill out a magazine at the table. He made a new habit for himself after coming to this world. He arrived in a place where there are monsters everywhere and a deadly infection. The Azel continent is the location where it is impossible to survive. Consequently, he started keeping a diary of his daily activities in an effort to figure out how to get back to Earth. Julia's agonized screams can be heard by Kang Seunghyun. As he turns, he sees the wound on her finger. He came up behind her and inquired as to her well-being. Julia screamed in terror, claiming that he terrified her a great deal. She is asked to allow Kang Seunghyun to examine her wound. Julia claims that nothing bad happened and that everything is fine. He had grown very weary of these arguments. He makes use of the skill Observant Gaze. His eyes have a faint blue glow to them. A system window displaying the target's physical state damage appears in front of him. Abnormal bleeding has been discovered. Left index finger suffered a knife wound. According to Kang Seunghyun, she only needs to have the bleeding stopped because nothing serious happened to her. He claims that she won't be able to cook if she injures her hands. Julia considers and says that, then apologizes for the incident and requests that he examine her wound. He uses the bleeding control technique on her hand. He declares that he is finished treating her wound afterward. Jules thanks Dr. Khan. He is informed by the system that he has earned 1 point. He anticipated that the therapy would help him gain 1 point. According to the system window, he can spin the roulette wheel once for 20 points. At the moment he has 10 points. Since he has accumulated so many points, Kang Seunghyun believes they can start the roulette wheel repeatedly. The system informs the player that the roulette has been started and that the points remaining will be used. The system's roulette wheel appears in front of him. System windows displaying the results started to appear as soon as the roulette wheel stopped in front of him. He twice received 10 gold coins and 1 point toward the strength characteristic. According to Kang Seunghyun, the result of this roulette shouldn't be gold. He thinks he has finally acquired a new skill when he notices another system window. He has acquired the distribution skill, which converts the absorbed potion into energy and distributes it according to the system window. When used, this ability increases the potency of potions by 30%. Increased potion potency by 30% while using it, according to Kang Seunghyun, is quite useful. He's finished eating, so why not give it a shot? He uses the absorption skill and takes the lesser healing potion. You are informed by the system when a healing potion is consumed. He now employs his distribution talent. The target's physical strength in the area where the skill was used has been restored, according to the system. Isn't that cool? Wonders Kang Seunghyun. He will be able to administer this potion to patients as well. Compared to simply drinking a potion, it is much better. The man standing next to him was terrified as he waved his hand. The man collapsed to the ground and lay motionless for some time. He quickly rose and inquired as to his identity. Asking for his pardon as Kang Seunghyun. If he really believes that a straightforward apology will suffice, the man questions. He unexpectedly came at him. They can assume that nothing happened because Kang Seunghyun claims that he recovered his physical strength. The man observes that his indicator of physical strength is fully charged. He puts his sword away and asks as he approaches. He therefore proves to be a healer. He was unaware of this skill because he had never seen it before. He only recently arrived from the village. He just arrived. According to Kang Seunghyun, he comprehended him. He considers how this man might discover a talent that is only known to extraterrestrial beings from another planet. The man informs the revered healer that it appears to be fate. He wants to join their team, right? Is he a member of the adventure party? Asks Kang Seunghyun. The man concurs and claims that they are merely hiring healers. There will be 4 of them if he joins, which is the perfect number for the squad. What is the goal of their squad? Inquires Kang Seunghyun. They will go monster hunting, the guy claims. What about the mission reward? Queries Kang Seunghyun. 1,200,000 gold coins are the reply from the guy. He considers the reward to be reasonable given that their squad lacks a healer. He ought to join them, perhaps, simultaneously at the Guild of Adventurers. The adventurer in torn clothing requests permission from Mr. Healer to first demonstrate his skills. Naturally, the healer claims he can. He declares that he will be the squad's sole healer as a bright glow emanates from his hand. The men who hired the healer are standing together at the Adventurers Guild after some time has passed. By grabbing the man by the shoulder, Kang Seunghyun informs Mr. Rick that he informed him there would be 4 of them, including himself. He grabs his head and remarks that it appears that several healers were brought at once. I assume they are already aware of the mission. 1,200,000 gold coins are the prize. Each person will receive less as they increase in number. Do they both approve of it? Both healers claim that it is suitable for them. This guy won't give in the opinion of Kang Seunghyun. Is what he wants really what he wants? This is excellent, the guy says, and they'll work together after that. Furiel is his name. After addressing him by name, Kang Seunghyun shakes his hand. The second healer observes them suspiciously while remaining silent. The entire group eventually makes its way through the forest. The man with the bow claims that having two healers makes him feel secure. The second healer believes that he will never forgive that freak for what he did. A while back, the second healer claimed that the only divine abilities he could use in the end were Blessing, God's Shield, First Aid, Antidote, Restoration, Cleansing Light, and Arrow of Light. Adventurers claim it's really cool. He is an extremely skilled healer. Rick turns and inquires regarding him. Kang Seunghyun says he can do it this way after giving it some thought. Around him, a tremendous amount of red energy appeared. The explorers became a little frightened and inquired as to what else this is at the moment. The second healer nibbles on his finger and ponders how this haughty freak could brag about some obscure trick he has never heard of. What monster are they aiming for, wonders Kang Seunghyun. Furiel claims that the sewage rat is their intended victim. They are enormous rats that inhabit the entire continent of Azel. He was unaware that such a rare species of rat existed. For one rat, 1,200,000 gold coins. There is no easier task than this. Surprised, Kang Seunghyun inquires as to his meaning. Have they never pursued exotic beasts? Furiel concurs and states that they haven't yet seen one. He remarks that the second healer has been a healer for less than a year as he takes a look at him. They need a lot more potions, according to Kang Seunghyun, to defeat the rare monster. After they get back to the settlement, it would be better to start preparing. After traveling so far, Furiel questions whether they actually need to turn around. He should disregard it since all they are after is a rat. If he did not consume enough potions, the second healer inquires. It falls under his purview. He can leave because he is so terrified. Exhaling, Kang Seunghyun declares that he will leave if that happens. All the explorers came to a complete stop, stunned by this. This makes the second healer very happy. If he is certain about this, Furiel says he can't change his mind. They will lose this battle, according to Kang Seunghyun, but he will be able to assist them. Currently, they only have to pay 300k per person. They chuckled and continued. Rick is asked by Furiel where he found this strange man, and the second healer waves and tells Furiel to look after himself. He questions whether this man has simply decided to flee from a rat. He will ultimately take this item, which is a rare item, and use it in his place. Later, Furiel appears from behind a tree and claims to have discovered the damned rat, which has paid 1,200,000 gold coins. They shouldn't be concerned about their stats, the healer says. If Furiel deems it acceptable, they may begin. While the other adventurers went on the attack, the healer stayed behind and used his abilities from a distance, but the rat quickly noticed them. Furiel leaps high above the rat and slams his fist into the ground while yelling, "This rat must die." He wonders where the monster went after observing that the rat was not in the area of his attack. The speedy rat sneaks up behind the archer, who sees it and prepares to attack from behind. The rat squeaks loudly as violet energy envelops its body. His mana is quickly depleted as the healer wonders what kind of aura this is. Mr. Healer is asked how he is by Rick. He's still fine, the healer assures them, and he will give them an attack boost if they move quickly. He is about to use the blessing skill when he suddenly stops and displays horror. The entire group of explorers notices it and wonders what it is. Numerous small rats have appeared behind the rat and are scurrying toward it to attack. The archer is attacked by the rats, who then knock him to the ground and cause him to scream in agony. Furthermore, the rats attack Furiel, who is concerned for Henry. The healer was astounded and believes that this is mentally impossible to comprehend. Did they really lose that fast? Rick flees in terror while yelling. When the healer notices this, she assumes that the cowardly man is leaving on his own. Sadly, he also lost all of his mana. Rick runs into the purple portal that appears in front of him. He apologizes to everyone before exiting the portal, promising to save them in his next life. Rick is running in his direction when the healer notices him and wonders why he returned. Rick claims that he left this place without a doubt after descending into despair. The healer wonders if the rats are actually imprisoned here after observing how they attacked the man. He curses out loud as he realizes that it appears as though he will perish here. They appear to be in big trouble, says Kang Seunghyun after breaking the potion. He was aware that it would take place. The second healer is surrounded by healing energy, and he is astounded by what he notices. In front of him, Kang Seunghyun asserts that they ought to have considered everything. Who would pay them that much cash for a single rat? If each of them pays him 500,000 gold coins, he will assist them. When the rats smell the potion, they stop. His sudden appearance surprises the second healer, who inquires about his health. He was prevented from answering by Kang Seunghyun, who warned that the rats would soon attack them. Mark Bello, you mentioned using the god shield, didn't you? The healer is alarmed by his inquiry. He grabs his head and says, I really can, but I have no potion and absolutely no mana left. Kang Seunghyun becomes aware that he is totally insane. Does that imply that all he needs is mana? He inquires. He uses the absorbed skill after taking the blue potion bottle. When a mana potion is consumed, the system alerts the user. He employs the distribution skill, which boosts the potion's potency by 30% as a result of its application. On the healer, he applies the talent. When Mark Bello opened his eyes, he questioned whether a skill had been used to restore his mana. His teacher once inquired as to whether there was a skill that could replenish mana. Does he genuinely believe that these abilities exist? To use skills, he needs mana. He shouldn't attempt to take the simple route. The great god alone is capable of performing this. Mark Bello examines Kang Seunghyun as he performs an action on him. Who is he even? He asks in a shaking voice. Is he Mr. Ivor, Mr. Fricka, Evil Aggrave, or perhaps Shihul? He collapses to his knees and berates his miserable and unworthy slave for being so impolite to him. He promises Mr. Ivor that he will keep what he saw today a secret from everyone. If he tells him the truth, Kang Seunghyun believes that the man might faint from embarrassment. Rats in great numbers congregate next to the adventurers' bodies. They are given a kick by Mark Bello, who also orders them to leave. The great Ivor should permit him to use this great sacred power, he says in a spell as he raises his hands in front of him. He wields the god's shield with grace. Around him, a magical wall materializes that drives the rats away. This is noticed by Kang Seunghyun, who interprets it as proof that he didn't exaggerate his skill level. Mark Bello alerts the Great Lord to his accomplishment. Agreeing, Kang Seunghyun says that while he can now do whatever he pleases, the most important thing is to keep him from being distracted. The man concurs with his boss. By breaking a bottle of potion that he summons, Kang Seunghyun drives the rats away. He believes that this trap is what makes this task so valuable in terms of money. Rare monsters have a special ability called dominance that enables you to gather and control others of your species. The monster uses the Space Lord ability to trap the adventurer in a miniature dungeon if they get scared and try to flee. He then prepared the world's pesticide. Tentral peppermint concentrate was in the bottle he broke. Even small animals can be killed by peppermint leaves, though not enough rats can be killed by this amount. Jumping over the enormous rat, Kang Seunghyun employs the distribution technique. He believes the distribution skill will change the situation because the monster's defense has been compromised. He clings to the rat's hide and strikes the rat's head with the slash ability. Around the rat, a tremendous amount of purple aura appears. When the rat begins to move forward, Kang Seunghyun finds it difficult to maintain its balance. When he turns around, he sees the damned rat running into a tree. At a high rate of speed, the rat strikes a tree. He was able to jump off the rat and believes it to have been hazardous. The rat's purple aura grows stronger and he notices that it is once more using its dominant skill. Mark Bello says a magic spell. Trust in the man who comes after Ivar. Mercy to the Ivar-believing man. He believes that since he himself told him not to distract him, he shouldn't do so. He opens his eyes to discover that small rats are already attacking Kang Seunghyun. He informs the powerful lord that he will now make use of the healing talent. While using the allocation skill on a regeneration potion, Kang Seunghyun declines. The system alerts him that the effects of a regeneration potion are restoring his health. It will take some time for recovery to continue. According to Kang Seunghyun, his stats are good so far. To finish the rat before the potion wears off, he must now act quickly. The little rats are too numerous, so he pushes them away from him. He is lifted into the air when a large rat approaches and bites him on the leg. Kang Seunghyun discovers that his foot is inside of a sizable rat's mouth. He grabs the wool and uses a dagger to stab the enormous rat in the head. The rat releases Kang Seunghyun as a result of this blow, and he then drops to the ground. The system alerts that bleeding from the monster's bite has caused an abnormal condition to appear. The regeneration potion's effects have been reversed. He questions whether this monster is currently causing him to bleed. The rare monsters seem to be quite intelligent. He heals his leg by employing the bleeding control ability. Kang Seunghyun observes that a more menacing aura is forming around the enormous rat. The system alerts him that a dominance skill has hit him and has weakened him as a result, causing damage and mana consumption to increase by 2. He considers dominance to be excessive. Who will be able to use skills normally if this monster reduces the opponent's mana supply by half? The rat squeaks loudly and rushes in his direction. If the rat is aware that he does not use mana, Kang Seunghyun asks. He also charges the rat, and when it was close enough, he used his slash ability to slash the rat with his dagger, striking it in the neck. His dagger pierced a large rat's throat sufficiently. He made a quick movement with his hand to remove the dagger from the monster, which caused the enormous rat to fall to the ground while the children simply fled from him. Kang Seunghyun examines his entire body and notes that his arms, legs, and ankle all appear to be in good condition. He exhales and claims that he truly believed he would pass away this time. In front of his face, a system window with the message "Achievement Received" appears. Rare 1v1. You can complete this achievement by taking down a rare monster by yourself. He will receive his reward. He expresses his happiness and claims that he was finally successful. It was unquestionably worthwhile. Mart Bello approaches him while yelling "Great Master" and waving his arms. Kang Seunghyun believes he came close to not achieving this goal. Fortunately, the heal was cancelled in the middle by that moron. When he requests the reward, the system displays a roulette wheel in front of him. He wonders if a roulette wheel will also be used to determine the prize. The system informs him that he now has a new skill. The throwing skill raises throwing damage by 100%, accuracy by 100%, and other effects by 25%. Kang Seunghyun questions whether he has the ability to attack. He was hoping for better. The line about additional effects caught his eye. Actually, the likelihood of instant death increases to 26% if he throws poison with a 1% chance of doing so. It truly is amazing. However, what is it? Mart Bello, who has just come running to him and is requesting his great master, interrupts him at this point. He is noticed by Kang Seunghyun, who compliments him on his work. Mart Bello, who is beaming with joy, claims that they could only have survived because of him. He will remain silent until his passing. Kang Seunghyun advises him to skip this nonsense and instructs them to wake up the others instead. Mart Bello concurs and employs the resurrection ability when approaching the adventurers' dead bodies. One by one, the explorers started to regain their composure. When Farrell awakens, he queries what transpired. He asks what is going on after opening his eyes to the bloody head of a large rat in front of him. How did he sleep? Wonders Kang Seunghyun, turning his head away. What does this mean? A more terrified Farrell asks with a trembling voice. Did he kill that monster or someone else? Did he believe that the rat died of old age? Wonders Kang Seunghyun. Farrell questions whether he really did defeat this monster by himself. Each one of them will have to give him $30,000 according to Kang Seunghyun. He says a quick thank you. They do recall what he had previously told them, right? Farrell concurs and assures him that they will pay him. Kang Seunghyun visits the rat corpse after remembering something. The adventurers all turn to stare at him in shock. He dissects the rat's body, believing there is something else inside. He specifically came here to accomplish that. The rat extrudes a small stone, and he declares that he will also take this for himself. When he receives a rare item, the system notifies him. After some time has passed, Kang Seunghyun receives his compensation and claims that he is now even slightly ashamed. Farrell asserts that given their gratitude for his saving them, he has nothing to be ashamed of. They should let Kang Seunghyun buy them a drink because he says he learned about this task from them. Henry informs them that they will be visiting their hometown tomorrow, so they must wake up with a clear mind. The three of them, according to Farrell, are from the same village. While trying to make some money so they wouldn't be adventurers any longer, they nearly ended up having a joint funeral. Kang Seunghyun asserts that he comprehends them. He believes that while adventurers run the same high risk as everyone else, they can quickly make a significant amount of money. Farrell says they will now say their goodbyes. The next time the chance arises, he might buy them a drink. Kang Seunghyun apologizes and waves to them. He turns and inquires about himself. Mart Bello claims to not consume alcohol. In that scenario, according to Kang Seunghyun, he can imagine that they will no longer be acquainted. He'll follow suit. Mart Bello concurs with the Great Lord and asserts that this must imply that he must conceal his identity for the time being. He quietly declares that he is still insufficient as he flees. To witness the true ascension of the great god, he needs more time to prepare. Kang Seunghyun questions whether he accidentally transformed a regular man into a sleepwalker. There is nothing he can do about it, he says as he turns to walk away. He must now assess the object he obtained from the enormous rat. Later, in a location where artifacts are assessed, the long-haired man welcomes him to the artifact appreciation shop run by the Adventurers Guild. They can only use items acquired from monster hunting once the crystals enclosing them have been removed. According to Kang Seunghyun, he came here to admire this object. The man says he will look right away. He places the stone that was given to him on the apparatus and is shocked by what he observes. If this item is better than anticipated, Kang Seunghyun wonders. The man promises to begin right away. He touches the thing with his hand, and a bright glow emanates from it. The man examines this object with a cunning expression before declaring that the task is finished after some time. This is an amulet of small life, a C-grade artifact. This thing costs about 80,000 gold coins, but he can get 120,000 gold coins for it if he sells it to their store. A potion is removed from a bottle and dripped onto the rock by Kang Seunghyun. The man queries his activities. This is a Ladasha potion, according to Kang Seunghyun, and it is well known in the north. When something comes into contact with blood, it reacts violently. He pulls a knife from his pocket and claims to have killed that rare monster with it. So that's how it is, the man inquires. Why is he telling him this? The Ladasha potion is dripped onto the dagger by Kang Seunghyun, who claims that although it appears clean because it was washed, the weapon still contains the blood they can now see. The man queries whether this implies that the object that emerged from the monster's body would need to react even more than this knife. If someone hadn't changed the item, according to Kang Seunghyun, it would be. He slaps the man's head on the table after grabbing him by the hair. The potions on the table fell as a result of this blow, which also generated a lot of dust. The man screams in agony and sobs loudly. He claims that he is doing something very wrong right now. If he signals, they are in the Adventurers Guild room. Kang Seunghyun acknowledged his point of view and agreed that he was correct. He appreciates him reminding him. He lifts the man back up and slams his head against the table once more. He has blood and potions all over his face, and his head is spinning. Kang Seunghyun heals his wounds by using the bleed control skill. He claims that it made him realize he had neglected to introduce himself. The man observes that his bleeding is no longer present. Could this be the man? Kang Seunghyun introduces himself and claims to be a healer. The man, who is struggling to open one eye, cries out for assistance. In the Azul continent, there is a proverb. If someone is going to trick the healer, he needs to make sure he is discovered. Artifact-bringing healers come in two different varieties. They are either incredibly strong or insane people who enjoy hunting monsters, and it appears that those people were correct. The man heals them so he can beat them again because he believes the healer is beating his enemies into a pulp. He does not, however, feel any divine power emanating from him. So it turns out that this artifact is actually a B+ rank artifact, correct? Kang Seunghyun inquires. The man concurs and claims that it is an A-grade mental focus ring and a B-grade plus artifact. The estimated value of these items in gold is 6,400,000 coins, and this man tried to purchase it for 120,000 gold coins, wonders Kang Seunghyun. Perhaps he ought to murder him. Why is this item so expensive? Kang Seunghyun queries. The system informs that wearing the mental focus ring enables the wearer to have extraordinary concentration. Mana, damage, spell casting speed, and mental toughness are all increased by 50% by this ring. If the wizard starts to panic, the man claims that he must know that the wizard is done. Is a 50% increase in mental toughness really that significant? Wonders Kang Seunghyun. The man concurs and explains that this item is so expensive because it is quite useful in a variety of circumstances. Kang Seunghyun believes it to be excellent. He claims that after doing so, he must remove the seal from this ring and take the amulet. He shouldn't even consider deceiving him once more. The man concurs and inquires, but how will the amulet be paid for? After spending some time in a pub, Kang Seunghyun feels like he has earned enough to indulge in a drink. However, a woman approaches him and begs his pardon. She claims that there are no open tables at the moment. He has two options. He can join a table or find another pub. Is that it? He queries. Is this Dr. Khan? Inquires the man at the table who overheard him. When Kang Seunghyun notices the man, he gets happier and identifies the man as Mr. Kim Ho-young. The man takes off his hood and claims that it was actually him. Has it been roughly 2 months since he sat down at his table, and the man asks how much time has passed. He is fortunate today because he this time made some money. Kang Seunghyun inquires as to his earnings. Kim Ho-young claims to have made up to 2 million gold. Isn't that amazing? He can make any request. He will pay for it today. He chuckles loudly and requests more beer. Kang Seunghyun urges him to try this while pointing to a menu leaf. Kim Ho-young is shocked and inquires if it is worth $1,900,000. It is overpriced. Kang Seunghyun chuckles and offers to cover the cost at that point. A bottle of Bilato raspberry mead is what he requests. Kim Ho-young claims that he performed exceptionally well. Did he obtain an artifact as well? If something positive occurred to him today, asks Kang Seunghyun while pouring Bilato into a glass. Kim Ho-young questions whether he really needs to consume this stamina supplement. He must find it exhausting to consider his stamina and statistics. In agreement, Kang Seunghyun believes that stamina is a quality distinct from strength. Since stamina can be recovered by simply resting, he must use a potion in order to use skills. Only he had been without mana from the beginning. Other dimensional travelers had mana for some reason, he reasoned, perhaps because they were from the continent of Azel. Kim Ho-young is also a transdimensional traveler. Isn't that still preferable to how he must do it? He queries. Using skills doesn't feel all that awkward. This has benefits, according to Kang Seunghyun, because mana potions are very expensive. In this absurd tale, Kim Ho-young advises them to partake in drinking together. They will raise a glass to people with weak abilities who reside on the Azel continent. Later, after getting very drunk, Kim Ho-young claimed to now understand why this Bilato was so expensive. He shouldn't consume too much alcohol, advises Kang Seunghyun. He recalls something and says he had a question for him. What did he want to ask? Wonders Kim Ho-young. Is it a significant matter? According to Kang Seunghyun, there are numerous people in the area. He needs to extinguish the god of tongue power. Kim Ho-young claims that it appears to be a very significant matter. The god of tongue skill has been cancelled, according to the system. Kim Ho-young inquires as to his whereabouts. Did he have a plan for getting them home again? Kang Seunghyun claims that he has unreasonable expectations of him. He has a new skill, and strange things are occurring to him. This skill has a black star. If there is a star next to the skill's name, Kim Ho-young queries. He lacks those abilities. According to Kang Seunghyun, this is the first time he has witnessed something similar. This ability surpasses all others by a wide margin. Should Kim Ho-young attempt to kill a rare monster on his own as well? If he has any knowledge of this, Kang Seunghyun inquires. Kim Ho-young claims to have no knowledge of it. He recalls and claims that he believes a member of the squad he was with mentioned the Black Star skill. Does he believe that Kim Yi-hyun was his name? Or is Kim Yi-young the one? Possibly Kim Jin-hyun. Say Kim Yi-hyun was his name. Kim Ho-young says that regardless, this guy was really strong, but Kang Seunghyun claims he can't just decide what someone's name is. He was an interdimensional traveler like them. However, the gap between them was so wide that he completely destroyed everything by himself. He responded by telling him what he had with the Black Star when he was asked what he ate to grow so strong. He started screaming loudly on the last day they were all together. He hardly heard anything about the fourth skill with the Black Star he already possessed. Could this be their strategy for returning? The question of how to return asks Kang Seunghyun. They eventually departed the pub. Kim Ho-young thanks him for the drink and promises to buy him 2 of these bottles when he makes $4 million. Laughing, Kang Seunghyun said he would appreciate that. It appears that he enjoyed this beverage so much that he even made the decision to bring a bottle along. Kim Ho-young claims to be returning to the hotel. What is he going to do next? According to Kang Seunghyun, he will go buy potions. When Kim Ho-young is about to leave, he waves to him and says that they will see each other again after he leaves. He receives a wave from Kang Seunghyun, who advises him to look after himself. Getting the fourth skill with a star, in his opinion, should change something if what he just said is accurate. This implies that he ought to learn this skill as well, as it might provide a hint as to how to get back home. Anyhow, how did Kim Yi-hyun manage to receive a star for up to 4 skills? He barely acquired one of these skills at the expense of his life. How could he have forgotten to impart such crucial information to him? He exhales and inquires as to whether there is anything he needs to do to earn points tomorrow. People were staring in awe at something the following day in the street market in the settlement of the Hind. He could heal anyone for a reasonable price, and an exchange was also acceptable, according to the sign. Visitors are greeted by Kang Seunghyun, who offers to treat them cheaply. A man in a hood asks if he is a healer. It is true, affirms Kang Seunghyun. The young lady claims to know him. This is the moron who was unable to use the heal skill and therefore was unable to obtain the healer's mark. Others claim they were aware of it because of his suspicious appearance. He appears to be a con artist, if you think about it. How can a healer be unable to heal themselves? Everyone departed from him. It was anticipated, according to Kang Seunghyun. The young woman approaches him and yells for him. He acknowledges her and greets her. He believes that individuals like that are his actual clients rather than explorers. The girl queries whether he actually approves of the trade. She's got a few potatoes. She is unsure if that will be sufficient. According to Kang Seunghyun, this will undoubtedly be sufficient. What is the issue? The girl reveals a cut on her arm after removing the bandage, explaining that she was working in the field when she was cut with a tool. She knew a man who cut his finger on a garden rag and later learned that he passed away after becoming gravely ill. According to Kang Seunghyun, tetanus is to blame. Because there is no vaccine available here, it is a terrible disease. He advises her to allow him to examine her wound. His use of the observant gaze skill, the discovery of an abnormal condition, and an abrasion are all reported by the system. Chopper's damage. 2 days have passed since the incident, and the use of outdated bandages may have caused an infection. Fortunately, according to Kang Seunghyun, it's not tetanus. He claims that she suffered no harm. The girl, who was overjoyed, inquired as to his certainty. Kang Seunghyun declares that he will search for medications on his table right away. He pulls out a tiny jar and declares that it will heal her. This potion appears strange, according to the girl. It's a bomb, according to Kang Seunghyun. She just needs to use clean bandages and apply it after breakfast and dinner. She doesn't have them, he wonders, correct. He tells her to wait a moment before running off. He came back carrying 10 bundles of grass. Since she lacks clean bandages, Kang Seunghyun believes he can handle it. He employs the ability to make fabric. Since he started doing this, he believes he can produce some spares. A regular person finds it challenging to purchase bandages due to their high cost. He wrapped up the girl's hand. This made her very happy, and she thanked the doctor several times. Kang Seunghyun thinks it's a good beginning and waves to the girl as she walks away. He sees that he earned points when a system window materializes in front of him. Many people observed how it operated. They approach the doctor and inquire if he actually accepts an exchange for an examination. Can he also look at their wounds? Kang Seunghyun grinned and said he would look at them. He is thanked by the public. He is informed by the system that he has earned points for treatment. For one of the individuals, he receives 3 points. He receives 2 points for the other 2 patients. The patient's assistance earns him an additional 5 points. The system informs him that he has accumulated 172 points later. After work, Kang Seunghyun is a little exhausted but believes it was well worth it. Although hunting monsters is beneficial, calmly assisting the community's residents in need is far superior. He wants to see only those kinds of patients. Unexpectedly, someone tosses a box of remedies and bandages to the ground. "It's nonsense," says a man's voice. Kang Seunghyun is drawn to this. A well-dressed man asks him if he refers to this filthy tent as a store. Kang Seunghyun. He needs to give the potion to him. A box of potions and bandages can be seen on the floor by Kang Seunghyun. He inquires as to what potions the man is seeking and wonders what kind of this is. The man declares that he desires the man's concoction. Why did this idiot come to his little shop, wonders Kang Seunghyun, if he comes from a noble family? He takes out a tiny jar and claims he has nothing else at the moment, but he doesn't know what he's looking for. Did he do it? The man queries. He's fortunate for a man who concocts potions. He goes by the name of Richard Yerv and is one of the Yerv family's 3 sons. According to Kang Seunghyun, the Yerv family is a significant local power player. What brings them here, he wonders. Richard's companion, a knight, claims that this is not unusual. Only the family's head has expressed a desire to hire Yerv. If he really came from such a proud family, Kang Seunghyun questioned. Richard claims that they are capable of handling such difficult tasks independently. The knight begs the young master's pardon and explains that he followed an order. He receives a small bag, which he is instructed to take. What is that? Kang Seunghyun points to the bag. If this moron doesn't even know what it is, Richard queries. He inquires if he believes you can identify it from the bag alone. The knight claims that this is a component required to create a treatment for the disease. After looking through the bag's contents, Kang Seunghyun declares that the West is a region that is infected. Takas was once a very beautiful place, the knight claims, but not now. This area has suddenly become heavily infested, and the earth is now rotting and emitting poison for no apparent reason. In order to stop the infection from spreading, their ruler, who is the owner of these lands, battles monsters alongside his army. If he came into contact with the infection during this process, is that what Kang Seunghyun is asking? The knight claims that one of the manor's staff informed them that he obtained the potion from this location. The poison treatment is currently brought in from a location that is incredibly far away from here, but it is quite challenging to do so. Kang Seunghyun believes that is the reason the cherished young master personally arrived here. A bomb is preferable to a liquid potion for treating contact with an infection. Currently, he is the only one who is capable of creating this bomb. Does that mean they want him to create this potion? He inquires. They do, according to Richard, speak the same language. He will give his father a lovely shop to replace this old one if he can make his father proud. In other words, he will be given a blessing that he cannot possibly repay in his lifetime. Kang Seunghyun claims he is astonished by the honor put upon him. Richard advises him to begin making the potion if he thinks he has everything figured out. Kang Seunghyun grinned and replied, "I reject." The young master of the night and himself became furious. What did he just say? Richard asks irritably. According to Kang Seunghyun, he has already declared his refusal. The evil Richard calls the knight a brazen idiot as the knight restrains him. Some other man who concocts potions like him cannot refuse it. His father has granted him the right to do this. They brought a bag, which Kang Seunghyun takes and claims they found the wrong person. And he doesn't even make any potions. He believes he will benefit greatly from taking this job, but he will have to continue working for them because he needs the points. In addition, this kid ought to be more courteous when requesting a favor. Suddenly, a man enters the shop and demands that Dr. Khan assist him. He's asked by Kang Seunghyun if he's Mr. Wall. The patient is being told about the patient's sister. When Kang Seunghyun employs a skill, a system window displaying the message an abnormal condition has been detected. Bleeding from a wound to the bone appears in front of him. A sharp sickle cut the finger, and if the wound is not treated, it could result in death. He believes that her finger is barely hanging on despite the cut having literally gone through the blood vessels, nerves, and ligaments. Wall positioned his sister in bed. They must first clean the wound, according to Kang Seunghyun. Quite a few foreign objects were inserted into the sickle wound. Right? Wall asks if he can assist her. Richard chuckled and declared that he was no longer able to contain his laughter. A maker of potions can remove poison or treat an illness, but he helpless against a wound. A creature made of light materializes in his hand after he uses the healing light skill. He claims that a healer like him is the only one who can treat this kind of condition. If he is a healer, wonders Kang Seunghyun. In that case, he claims, he ought to grow her finger back. Why would he do that, wonders Richard. Does this commoner possess sufficient funds to pay him? He will, however, have mercy on this commoner if he repents of being extremely arrogant and obeying their commands. Kang Seunghyun questions whether he can actually heal a regular person. If a noble wasn't insane, he wouldn't act that way. This freak obviously requires his potion. Kang Seunghyun declines and claims he is capable of handling it on his own, so he is not required to. In a fit of rage, Richard queries how he intends to carry out this action. Kang Seunghyun says he will simply sew the finger back on after taking out a small box of healing supplies. He believes the bleeding has stopped and the wound has been cleaned. The fact that he had the saline ready in advance is good. Again laughing, Richard inquired as to whether he had chosen to sew his finger back on. Does he believe the man to be a toy? Wool doubts that anything will go wrong. If he's going to divert him, Kang Seunghyun believes he ought to just leave him alone. Richard claims he's prepared to stake his lucky necklace on a failure. Hearing this, Kang Seunghyun declares that if he succeeds, he will take his necklace and treat common people for free for 3 days while also giving them food. What do you say? Calling the young master is the knight. Richard disregarded the advice of the knight and sided with this cursed liar. He promises that if he fails, he will make the potion they require and will never again identify himself as a healer. Even though he said he would sew on his finger, Kang Seunghyun agrees that using regular thread would make it extremely challenging. He thinks he can create a thread that is appropriate for surgery by using the thread creation skill on a mana potion. He now employs observant gaze. Richard questions how a regular person who creates potions could waste his time in such a way. In the end, he'll make him regret it. He is distracted from his thoughts by Wool, who yells in shock. He looks up and exhibits surprise as well. Kang Seunghyun believes he has picked up some rules from his time spent working as a healer. He uses stitching, eye contact, and bleeding control as the 5th rule of the healer's survival. The healer shouldn't hold off until he masters a valuable skill. He should make the most of the abilities and information he already possesses. He uses a thread from a mana potion to mend the girl's finger. Even though a fingertip transplant is a very challenging procedure, he is capable of anything with the right training. To reconnect the severed nerves one at a time, he will need to focus intensely, but he will be assisted by rare items. The system reports that as a result of the mental focus ring's impact, his mental strength has significantly increased. If he stitches the skin, he is now successful. He notices that his condition worsens and that his energy is nearly gone. Kang Seunghyun believes he only has a few stitches left after continuing to sew his finger together. The mana potion's thread breaks, but he insists that nothing is wrong. The girl's finger was repaired by sewing. Wool cries hard but claims he was able to reconnect his sister's finger. With all his strength, Kang Seunghyun studies the system window and decides it was close. He would have passed out if it had taken a little bit longer. They must wait until he has regained his strength before finishing it properly. He makes use of the full heal ability, which accelerates the patient's recovery. In order to use the skill, he moves his hand to the girl's finger and declares that everything is prepared. Wool is pushed aside by Richard, who tells him not to joke around like that. The finger being able to move after that is impossible. According to Kang Seunghyun, he can check himself. Richard advises this conceited freak to leave the stage. She opens her eyes after he uses the resurrection ability. Kang Seunghyun queries whether she can clearly hear him. The young woman only gives him a blank stare. He requests that she extend and retract her hand. The girl follows his instructions. He says it's fine and that's sufficient. Richard expresses shock and calls it amazing. If he still recalls what he was just talking about, Kang Seunghyun queries. He is reluctant to admit that he won't uphold the promise he made on behalf of the noble Yer family. This astounds Wool and Knight. Richard wonders how a regular person who makes potions could have the audacity to do this. He was so furious that he threw his necklace to the floor and stormed out. Kang Seunghyun advises him to return gifts in a gracious manner if he intends to do so. When he picks up the necklace, the system notifies him that it is a lucky necklace that makes the wearer luckier. Dr. Khan has earned Wool's gratitude, he says. Does he believe Richard will keep his word? By the way, Kang Seunghyun asserts that he will adhere to his word. He expects his father to be extremely strict in this area. He requests that they spread untruths about it. They must be informed that free medical attention and food are available in the town square. Julia queries Dr. Khan about the rumor after spending some time at the hotel's Bits Bowl. What rumor, inquires Kang Seunghyun, is she referring to? He appears to be extremely exhausted, and Julia informs him that the young master of the Yer family has established a free clinic in the town square. Many people congregate there because it is free and the food is also free. Is that how it is? Kang Seunghyun queries. It really is wonderful. Julia claims that she became concerned that his patient roster would shrink as a result. According to Kang Seunghyun, he can manage it. He considers it sufficient that many people will be able to receive free medical care. Julia believes that he is a kind-hearted man. The mere thought of how well Richard is doing right now, according to Kang Seunghyun, makes him happy. He says that he has some potatoes with him today and pulls out the basket that was given to him. She ought to accept it if she doesn't mind. Julia says she is responsible for it and agrees. She'll prepare a delectable meal to give him a boost of energy. She has his gratitude, but he believes that he won't have much energy today because he recently used 10 roulette spins and spent 200 points on them. He doubled one stamina, twice as much gold, once as much health, once as much mental strength, and once as much health. He believes that the roulette let him down and that life is harsh. Even though Kang Seunghyun believes it would be strange if he continued to receive skills frequently, he did receive a life force crystal and an increase to his inventory. He makes use of the inventory expansion right away to add more space to his inventory. He considers the crystal to be an ingredient for stamina equipment, so at least it will be helpful. Kim Ho-young asked him if it wasn't a crystal as he quietly approached him. He is noticed by Kang Seunghyun, who inquires if he is also staying here. Kim Ho-young claims that the food at this establishment is the best. He was fortunate to have recently acquired this item. If this item isn't meant to enhance the crystal, asks Kang Seunghyun. Kim Ho-young claims that since he doesn't require it, he may take it. He is considered to be a very kind person by Kang Seunghyun. He accepts the card and claims that he can sell it for a profit. If he doesn't want to take it, Kim Ho-young asks. Kang Seunghyun thanks him for letting him take the item and says he will take it. When Kim Ho-young sees the ring on his hand, he inquires as to whether the ring has yet to be sold. Will he keep using it? Kang Seunghyun claims that he only required this ring temporarily. It is still challenging to sell because of how expensive it is. After spending some time in the weapon shop, Kim Ho-young asks if he can suggest a store to him. Kang Seunghyun enters and begs for pardon. He considers it to be not too bad for the shop that Kim Ho-young suggested. The man welcomes him. According to Kang Seunghyun, he came here to sell some goods. The man looks at the necklace and remarks that the crystal is broken in this lucky necklace. Richard was a freak who threw necklaces after losing a bet, according to Kang Seunghyun. The man claims he can exchange this necklace for 3 million gold coins. Richard is thanked for damaging the necklace, and Kang Seunghyun wants to know what he has to say about it. The man comments on the ring's rarity after seeing it. He ought to be patient and allow him to review the recent transaction history. Kang Seunghyun advises him to take his time and explore the area. If there were any useful weapons in this area, he questioned. He comes across a crossbow and considers whether to assess its potency. After all, a ranged weapon would be nice to have. As he moves to grab the crossbow, an intense blue glow appears out of nowhere. He examines it and inquires, what is it? A system window with the message he must get this item no matter what appears in front of him. Confounded, Kang Seunghyun queries whether he ought to purchase this crossbow. He remembers receiving countless messages, but up until this point, he has never seen a message that resembled the one the sender sent. It appears that he is being observed. He is taken out of his thoughts by the man's voice. Is there something wrong with him? He queries the master. Kang Seunghyun apologizes and claims he was only thinking when he did this. Is this crossbow a unique weapon of some sort? He must be referring to Freaky's crossbow, the man claims. This priceless weapon was discovered among the artifacts. If Freaka places something inside his bag, this crossbow will also be included. The man claims that the object in the bag transforms into an arrow after he throws a gold coin into it and fires a crossbow. He can even make 5 consecutive shots. According to Kang Seunghyun, it must be very expensive. He queries the price of this crossbow. According to the man, this crossbow is worth roughly $15 million. He is aware that he cannot possibly purchase it. The man claims that he can sell a crossbow for $14 million if someone wants to buy one now. How much can he get for the mental focus ring? Asks Kang Seunghyun. The man claims he checked the history of transactions and saw that he had been bought for 6,600,000 gold coins. For the same cost, he can purchase this ring. If he only receives 9,600,000 gold coins in exchange for the ring and necklace, wonders Kang Seunghyun. Even if he uses all of his meager resources, it won't be enough. Contemplating some idea, he says subtly that if they are still following him, they ought to give him 4 million gold pieces. The man was aware even though nothing happened. If they really want him to buy this crossbow, he believes they should at least give him a little extra cash. If he doesn't have enough money right now, the man inquires. He wants him to mark it as a reserved item, right? Asking if he can handle it for him is Kang Seunghyun. Of course he can, says the man. He believes he will be able to make that much money very quickly based on the items he brought. Kang Seunghyun believes he now comprehends why Mr. Kim Ho-young suggested that he visit this store. He thanks him and requests that he hold on to this crossbow for him. The man accepts and inquires about any additional preferences. He is asked to give a brooch with an adornment for enhancement by Kang Seunghyun. Kang Seunghyun believes that after spending some time at the Adventurers Guild, he will now examine a new item. The Vitality Brooch is a device that reportedly boosts stamina with the potential for improvement, according to the system window. Many people are gathered in front of the board and advising others to look at the assignments as well. A man is required to leave after finishing his reading. According to Kang Seunghyun, it is the duty of an adventurer to offer their skills in exchange for money and points. Mr. Kim Ho-young was going to lend him some money, but he claimed to only have 5,000 gold coins. He was poorer than he had anticipated. Kim Ho-young inquired if he believed they couldn't return home in any case. They couldn't be certain, but Kang Seunghyun said he believes he has some hints in response. After 3 years of silence, he finally spoke to him, telling him that someone had brought them here. If he obtains that crossbow, perhaps he can speak with him. In any case, he promises to let him know anything he learns. He appreciates him giving him this money. When Kim Ho-young becomes enraged, he demands that the freak return everything. That is what occurred previously. It appears that he must start by working. As he makes his way through the crowd, Kang Seunghyun considers his options. He tears off the colored note, assuming that these quests are for healers because it appears that way. When she sees him, the girl begs Mr. Kang Seunghyun to pardon her and informs him that he needs a healer's signature because only licensed healers are permitted to perform these tasks. They are unable to register him despite all that he has done for them. She needn't be concerned, according to Kang Seunghyun, who is only looking at the assignments. "How are you?" the girl queries. She observes the tasks he has taken on and questions whether they are all still in progress. Kang Seunghyun remarks that this sounds good after spotting one note. According to the note, a healer is immediately required. The patient's leg continues to bleed. A while later, Dr. Khan is questioned by Julia if he left anything behind. "It's not like that," claims Kang Seunghyun, and he was merely looking for someone here. He thinks he has found what he was looking for as he opens the door to the room. The man promises to make it better. May Mr. Ivor grant her his grace. Looking at him, Kang Seunghyun wonders if he is a priest. It is impossible that someone could employ a regular priest. He might be a traveling priest. Ms. Lena is exhausted. The girl informs the Holy Father. The man advises them to move quickly. Could she take the bandages off? Kang Seunghyun looks attentively. He discovered bleeding brought on by an infection, which was abnormal. This wound was brought on by a sharp object cutting it. On the wound, there were signs of tiny teeth. He finds this strange. The priest declares that he will release her as his hand shines brightly. Kang Seunghyun storms in and tells him to wait a moment. The priest breaks the spell and inquires as to who he is. Kang Seunghyun introduces himself and claims to be a healer. He apologizes for getting in the way, but his healing will be ineffective. Does this obnoxious man even know what kind of healer he is? The priest asks. Kang Seunghyun claims he believes he misunderstood the other person. He is not discussing his skills. The girl with the yellow hair apologizes and queries whether he actually claimed to be a healer. Then she is confident that he will be able to comprehend her partner's situation. He should stop interfering and leave right away if they were only here to say odd things. According to Kang Seunghyun, he recently informed them that this particular type of healing was ineffective. The girl pushed him out of the room after becoming enraged, telling him to leave and stop bothering them. The girl did this, closing the door with a loud slam. They were all very stubborn, thought Kang Seunghyun while grinning. If they didn't tell her that this healing wouldn't work, then she shouldn't tell him that. The young girl requests that the Holy Father continue to heal her. She need not be concerned, the man says. The priest is embarrassed and baffled by what is taking place. On the patient's leg, he applies the holy light technique. Does he ever question why his healing is failing? The girl's leg's wound is still bleeding, and it has not yet healed. The girl queries the priest regarding the situation. Why is the bleeding not stopping? According to her, everything proceeds exactly as it did with the previous healer. She anticipated that the priest at the church would be distinctive. No matter which healer she summons, none of them can make Len whole. The patient calls Lizzie, a friend of hers. "What's wrong, Lena?" the girl inquires. Lena claims that the previous healer knew that attempting to heal her would be futile. If it is him, he might be able to heal her. Lizzie claims that the man told the healer not to heal because he appeared to be very suspicious. Lena takes her hand and cautions her not to believe that even with the potions, she can endure. Lizzie becomes aware of how chilly her hands are. She nods in agreement and promises to bring him back. Julia is alerted by the sudden, jarring sound of the door opening. Lizzie approaches her and begs for mercy. She looked around to see if anyone had just left the living room. He is quite tall and has black hair and eyes. Julia asks if she is referring to Mr. Khan when she points to the table. If her friend's treatment is going well, Kang Seunghyun inquires. Even from a distance, the holy energy appears to be very impressive. Lizzie makes a fist with her hand and declares that he was correct. Huvis, a healing priest, was ineffective as well. He is aware of the issue, right? Kang Seunghyun claims to believe he is aware. Does that imply that she wants him to heal her from whatever happened? Lizzie claims that she misheard what he said because she is embarrassed. He spoke as if there was no hope left earlier. Because the healers were insufficient, in her opinion, the cure had not yet been effective. She can be quite haughty in saying this. She asks him to save her colleague while bowing. Lizzie believes that by asking him for assistance after having said so much, she has lost all moral integrity. She keeps bowing despite being unable to comprehend what is happening. What is she doing? Wonders Kang Seunghyun. She must move more quickly so that he can examine the patient. He behaved as though he wasn't going to assist Lizzie, she claims. In the space, Kang Seunghyun asserts that Priest Hubis ought to have investigated the root of the problem instead of relying solely on healing. The wandering priest, Hubis Finn, ponders what he said. According to Kang Seunghyun, he already informed them that his healing would not be effective. If the healing is ineffective, Hubis inquires, what does he mean by poisoned? He has learned about 100 different poisons in addition to healing in order to become an expert detoxifier. He takes pride in his ability to manage poisons, and he can assure the patient that he is not poisoned. Despite the fact that bragging about one's abilities is a particular quality of healers, Kang Seunghyun believes that he does so shamelessly. He claims that he made no mention of the poison being the cause. What is Mrs. name? He queries. Lena is her name. The girl turns to face him and informs him. Miss Lena is informed by Kang Seunghyun that he is beginning to examine her wound. How did she acquire this injury? Lena claims that while traveling to a Hind settlement a week ago, she was attacked by rock moles. These monsters are not particularly powerful. Actually, at first it was only a small wound. Lizzie finds it odd because she was attacked as well. Did they head to the settlement immediately after being attacked by rock moles? Wonders Kang Seunghyun. Lizzie claims that it isn't. They were then pursued by a band of goblins in the jungle and a band of crocodiles in the mixed swamps. Hevis questions whether they really underwent so many different tribulations. After that, according to Lizzie, they hardly made it to the settlement before Len's condition abruptly deteriorated. Kang Seunghyun claims to have one final query. Is the wound bothering her? If you think like that, it doesn't hurt her at all, Lena concludes after giving it some thought. So her wound doesn't hurt? Hevis inquires. Why does she only now bring up such a crucial point? Lena claims that due to her dizziness, she was unaware that the wound did not hurt. Hevis claims that while he had a strange suspicion, black magic ended up being the cause. In contrast to holy power, a technique known as black magic uses dark mana. At that moment, the priest realized that it was obvious that the healing would not work because the girl was cursed. But our protagonist immediately, just like the evil Raziel all the myths, he said that this is not black magic because if it was a curse, then healing would cause even more damage. The priest was indignant, but our main character said that this was exactly the point. He took out a certain file and immediately activated them on the girl. The system said that the skills of distribution and absorption were applied consistently. The priest simply couldn't believe his eyes, because what did the priest even give him? Why did the potion become a mist? The girl was also surprised, and our character said that it was because of the concentration of tentral mint. There is nothing better for catching insects than self-made crevices. She couldn't understand what he was talking about at all, and in that tone of voice. But our main character asked us to take a closer look. He said that most likely the girl could see that there was a tiny bite mark on her leg. The girl in general, Sma mentioned earlier that she went through a certain swamp Mika. It is because of its features that this swamp is a natural habitat for various monsters insects. Miss Lena's wound was saved while Perez 5 was taken to the swamp. She hadn't been right back, but it was the same with Lizzie. However, did they receive these injuries both? Of course, the girl replied that on the chile side of her palm and face, and Lena has nowhere else but her leg. It was at this point that the girl realized that Lena's wounds were the only ones that had come into contact with the input. So our hero confirmed her words. He said that this is the source of infection inside the swamp. That is, Lena's wound came into contact with water infected with insects. There is no foreign object inside her leg at all, so it is obvious that the bleeding will never remain. At that moment, the priest himself understood what was going on, but the girl was simply delighted with this fact. Our protagonist continued by saying that the fact that the wound doesn't hurt at all means that the insect has the skill of anesthesia. This is a fairly high-level skill for this type of player, and among these insects, there is not a creature so weak that it will die from a single dose of medication. Our main character immediately cut off the leg of his patient and a huge creature got out of there. The priest couldn't understand what it was, but our hero only said that they should destroy this object right now because this creature is quite unpleasant. It was a black swamp leech. At the same time, the priest realized that the leech had grown, but there was nothing he could do. He just looked and saw that it had grown. The leech immediately overcame the priest with its tail. The book came out of his hand, so that our hero had no choice but to try to catch up with the creature that was running. But it was too late. The leech was already rushing to the hatch to escape through the sewers. He asked them to grab a tool to boil her, tried to get ahead of the leech and deliver his precise blow directly to her skull. Unfortunately, his dagger only hit her fangs. As soon as B's fangs came into contact with the dagger, the shockwave reverberated in his hand. The leech's teeth were just incredibly elastic and hard. Since this leech had been feeding on human blood for a whole week, it was expected to be strong. But even taking all these factors into account, it still grew too fast. The leech continued on its way, so the girls had to climb up on the surface so that the leech couldn't reach them. A certain girl even jumped on the wardrobe. The leech thought she was just trying to escape, so it chased after her, but it wasn't that simple. The girl immediately pinned her down with an object. She was glad, because she knew she couldn't just let go of the thing that was trying to kill her friend Lena. However, at the same time, Lisa noticed that the leech was directly above her. Our hero had no choice but to simply take and throw this leech with one push to the side. The leech was flying out of the way. It was stunned, so there was nothing else to do but to take a fatal blow to it. Our protagonist immediately picked up his dagger and threw it down the bear's throat. He realized that since the monster was using the drained blood as a source of power, if the person continued to attack it, the leech would simply lose all its blood and dry up. After the impact, as soon as most of the blood came out of the leech, it significantly decreased, which everyone noticed. It became much smaller, but still continued to search with its tentacles for places to escape to. She found the window abruptly and immediately rushed in. Our Parasnad was quite upset and excited about this idea. He knew that he would not only have to catch leeches in the street, but also apologize to Mrs. Julia. So if the leech gets out through the city canal, then it simply cannot be found. And if they miss it right now, then all efforts will be lost. Our doctor climbs through the window, keeping an eye on the leech. He picked up a certain potion and immediately broke it. Immediately, the distribution and absorption skills were activated on him, and the effect of the tentral mint potion was increased. It was at this point that the leech sensed pain in its body, and our character continued to chase after it. He struck her blow after blow, and then noticed that the leech had a bleeding effect. The blood in the leech was almost gone, so our protagonist already thought that it was just a little bit left to finish the whole thing. He raised his dagger above him, and then immediately considered that this was the moment to deliver the final blow. At one point, the dagger was already stuck into the leech's body, but unexpectedly for the doctor, it was unable to pierce through the leech's body and skin. The sword just broke. However, a priest appeared to help our protagonist, who used the sacred shackles on a leech. The priest was shouting that it had taken him too long to cast the spell, but the leech was too strong and he couldn't hold it forever. This information immediately turned away from the priest and thanked him. He knew that Kang had bought him some time, but he just couldn't use his size skill without a weapon, and the broken blade didn't fit, so Kang was thrown the blade at the same time. The girl asked me to use it. At that moment, the leech broke free of its shackles, but it was already too late. Our character was already rushing at it, about to deliver a decisive and fatal blow to it. In an instant, the leech was cut into small pieces. Was she really dead? Our doctor said that it was thanks to the priest that they were able to catch the leech, so he can take the body as well. But the priest made it clear that he felt only disgust not only for such a sight, but also for the whole leech. The doctor realized that since no one wanted her, he would take her for himself. When everyone came to the ward, our doctor was able to protect the girl's wound in an instant. Everyone thought that he sewed the leather like a sewing machine. But our protagonist said that when he sews, he uses colored thread, which cripples the durability. This way, the girl's leg will not hurt. At that moment, the girl began to cry because she was so happy that she wasn't going to die that she just couldn't hold anything in. She thanked our main character for such a good deed, but our Kang only replied that it was his duty. Then he turned to the priest and asked him to report that he had failed the task. The priest was shocked by this request, but our character only said that it should be done in order for him to receive a reward. At the same time, in the Adventurers Guild, the priest's father could be seen coming to say that he had failed. The girl who was there was just in shock, because she couldn't believe that now the priest was standing in front of her and saying that he couldn't cope. The same Hughes, one of the highest ranking priests in the church. He can take a position even higher in the church if he wants to, but why him? It was at this moment that the girl behind the priest noticed the same guy she had seen earlier, the task destroyer, whose name was Kang. Sure enough, at this moment, the girl who was standing at the table was watching the other girl cancel the request. Everyone was shocked, but they understood that this was an acceptable reason. The girl immediately said that according to the rules of the Adventurers Guild, they would return half of the amount they were paid and the current quest would be cancelled. Kang understood that he couldn't take a task for official healers, but he was free to take tasks that the guild had cancelled. Sometimes people told him that, too. They said that he had no conscience, that he constantly interfered with the bug, and did not even know how to use healing. However, our hero understood why they were angry, but then they should have treated everyone correctly at once. That was exactly what he was thinking with a smile on his face. It is for this reason that he works as a healer. At this point, we could see that the girl was holding out a bag of Monties. She said it wasn't very much, but it would still be worth accepting that much for helping them. He also concluded half of the amount that the Adventurers Guild was returned to them. Of course, our hero said that he was very grateful for all this, that he would soon return and the dagger that was lent to him. But the girl asked him to keep it because the dagger he used broke anyway, and this Kanesh is made of blue silver, which will clearly be better in action. The girl said that the people of her village made it for her when she said that she was going to become an adventurer. Our Glanbridge hero asked if she is sure that she can give something so important, but the girl just started scratching her head and saying that in general she wanted to apologize to the doctor. She said that there was no antique show more important than the life of her own comrade. Kang smiled and once again thanked the generous girl, so he gave her a 10% discount, if necessary. In total, our main character was able to accumulate about 700,000 gold, but its rainy day reserves amount to about 2 million gold. I still needed about $2 million to buy a crossbow. At the same time, he called the system and decided to play roulette. 100 points were spent, but the result of the rewatch left only much to be desired. He understood that he needed money, but he didn't want to get 1 gold coin each. But still, another message met his eyes, and he noticed that he was able to get a new skill after scrolling. He was able to obtain a skill called Air, which allows the user to brew a potion with the appropriate attribute. It should probably be a wind or air potion, so this skill is pretty good. All that was needed now was to go to the ward. As soon as he entered the room, the voice of the person who greeted him was heard. It was Apothecary Lafay, who said that if Keanu needed something, he could just take it. However, at the same time, our protagonist said that he came there not to buy, but to sell something. The girl immediately finished dealing with the octopus that was lying on her desk and asked to immediately get the goods. She was clearly excited by the suggestion. But what kind of salesperson is happy about customers who sell instead of customers? Sure enough, after a brief pause, a leech was piled on the table. Kang said that he received it not so long ago. Lafay was asking, is this the black swamp leech that was in the swamp? Of course, our hero confirmed all this information, so Lafaye began her examination. She said that the poor Piaka is quite shabby, there were a lot of scratches on it, she just can't give a good price for it. However, while our character was watching and playing with the plant, the girl offered about 3 million. Our Glanbydroy couldn't believe it, and Azel that is so fond of leeches that she is ready to offer such a price. But the girl said that on the contrary, she just asked to look at her teeth. He said that it was a very rare nightingale of the black swamp leech, it has white teeth instead of black. Our character asked again, was there really a rare monster in front of him? But Lafay said that the important difference is that the remains of a rare monster without a relic are simply useless as an ingredient, and on the other hand, special type stops can be used to create artifacts. Special species are rare, and they haven't been properly studied yet, which is why they're so expensive. Kang understood why the apothecary wanted it so badly, so when asked by Lafay, he said that he would be happy to sell it. His hands were clenched, so after a few minutes, as soon as the case took place, our main character went to the armory and asked to check the full amount, even check it. The person was shocked by the speed of collecting money, but our character just asked to show the crossbow that was supposed to be available. As soon as the man showed him the crossbow, our hero finally said that he was glad that the crossbow was now his. He asked someone to show up, which took the blacksmith by surprise, and he noticed that our character was communicating with someone again. As soon as our protagonist came home, he couldn't understand, really getting a crossbow wasn't enough. However, as soon as he reached out his hand and used the inventory, a message appeared saying that Kang had finally done everything that was required of him. Kang realized that this was probably what he wanted, and then a message appeared in front of him every second, which shocked him. What's going on anyway? He could see that almost every word in the message was blurry. He understood that the notification said that he had completed the task, but what about the rest of what it said? Of course, he turned to the side and asked, does everyone want to tell him that there was a fight in the system? No one answered him, which made him even angrier. Of course, he thought it was all a joke, because he even got the crossbow that he was told to get. He asked to stop watching him and show himself so that they could talk. At the same time, the window reappeared. A black star appeared, which meant that Khan was most likely being watched. A message flashed up that the creature was not his aunt's. It will answer as many as 5 questions. At the same time, we realized that when Khan was transported to the continent of Azel, everyone else who came with him either survived or died in the caves. There were many disagreements among the survivors as to whether they should stay here or find a way to return to Earth. But many said that no matter how they looked, they would still need the money. Someone offered to find a job according to your skills. So after they split up, they will be able to join the world. And those who want to return to Earth will look for a way to do it. And after 3 years, now our main character can ask as many as 5 questions. Finally, you can find out how to get back. The messages are getting shorter, but did this thing come with certain restrictions? Every question was worth considering before asking. The first question was this the entity that had brought them to the continent of Azel? The entity immediately said that it was her, which could make it clear that just like Kang thought. So he asked why he was doing everything. Then Kang asked, so what does this creature do anyway? But at that moment, too, the answer to the question was always yes. Then our protagonist started asking questions about whether he would be able to return to Earth. The creature replied that yes, that no one had been able to return to Earth yet. Our main character could not believe, really no one was able to leave this world. So even Kim wasn't able to come back. A single spammer will get a lot of information from the yes and no questions, so write something in a notepad. Of course, our main character understood that the creature brought them to this world for a reason, so he had exactly the goal. What exactly does he want from them? Earthlings. At the same time, he wrote 2 questions on the pad. Which was closer, collecting points or items, or using skills to gain more power? There are only 4 possible answers that can be received from the status window, so if the answer is not listed, then just do not answer. Of course, the system said yes, so that's probably true. The final question was, what is really important, the points or the item? The system said yes, so it made it clear that the most important points were probably the most important ones. Our main character just lost his temper. He couldn't believe that the person in front of him now had brought them there so that he could use them as slaves to earn points. Extremely annoying. But looking at it objectively, because if he was the only one who could learn so much, then it means that he is the closest to achieving it. Its goals. Our main character said that what he does is not his concern, but he should know who he is. Is he the god of the Azel continent? After all, he might have run out of questions, but he would have answered this one if it was him. If he wanted help, he should have shown his sincerity. At this point, the shackles were absorbed by about 52 points. The god just took and forgot almost all the points of our main character, which threw him into shock. He asked him to return his glasses and so on, but they had already sold everything. Our main character said that exactly P wanders with God for all this, but God asked us to score 5,000 points again, and the reward will be the skill rank. Kang understood that even such a quest system didn't exist before, so what is it? Since God took his points and gave him a replacement task, Sutovo probably uses the points to control the system. It seems that the message is that he will have to also be difficult to understand for the time being, so our hero promised that he would complete his task, since he asks, but expects a worthy reward. Although there are many names that he would like to call now, but since he managed the status window, he will call the creature admin in the future. By then, our character had walked over to the table and dropped a rabbit sandwich, but it was disgusting. He even remembered that yesterday's harvest was quite strong. After all, he got a new skill, Freaky's crossbow. This means that the reward was an exclusive skill for the crossbow, so it will be a good idea to use it together with other skills. Our protagonist immediately began to spin the roulette wheel and received not only 50 points, but also a free coupon for the handle. As soon as this coupon was used, the roulette gave out that its characteristics were increased, but after reading more closely, you could see that these are not just characteristics for our character, but characteristics for the crossbow itself. Our character continued to eat his sandwich and realized that he gets extra points for each soul. By then, Kang's acquaintance, Mr. Kim Jun, came out. Kang asked him to come up to him and say something strange to him. As soon as this information was revealed, Kim was just shocked. Is everything that our character said really true? Were they all sent there just to earn money? But Kang said that was all that worked out in the end. Kim said they weren't some kind of slaves, but he was glad because he thought he would die before he set foot on his native land again. Kang immediately asked me to stop crying and listen to him. After all, as he heard, but from his approximate experience, they need to hurry up and earn as many points as possible. Kim couldn't understand, is it really that hard to earn points? But Kang only replied that it was difficult, even though all he had to do was heal his wounds. First, about the wounds he inflicted, it's all about the gift, the cure, the hit, the cure, and so on. And his own wounds, but they do not count, but it is necessary to treat a wounded comrade. If he cured his companion at any time, he would be able to earn points quickly. Kim doesn't understand OP, so what is the help? But Kang only extended his hand and asked them to become his assistants. Of course, Khan understood that they needed to create an impromptu team, since interdimensional travelers who knew about the status window system were suitable to be his best friends. In the middle of them, there was a person in front of him who he could trust to a certain extent. Of course, no matter how much Kang thinks about it, Kim is the only one who can help him right now. But Kim only thought, and then said that he would help Doctoro if he asked for it. Kang already knew that the person in front of him would say yes, so at that moment, Kim just took out a dagger to stab his own arm. The doctor couldn't understand what his assistant was doing. But Kim said that he invests with his body to earn points. Kang couldn't figure out what he was doing because it didn't make sense if the wound was self-inflicted. They both knew as soon as their arm was bandaged that they needed to hunt for Moktulv. Kim asked, but not really, is it fast? But Kang said that people should be attentive. It was at this moment that they entered the Adventurers Guild together with their friend. Just the look on her face made her body tremble. At this point, both of them started looking at Zadnia, deciding to ignore the girl, and decided that the best tasks would be in Beloto Ridge. The number of monsters should also have increased, and the girl who stood behind our Persian Nami Ozodi said that it's the peak time for monsters to appear in the mountains, so they regularly give out tasks to be read out. This season, people can even use Seongwon Camp, a post-war Adventurers Guild facility. Of course, our protagonist knew that if this was the main camp, there would be a lot of adventurers, which makes it a real factory of points. Kang immediately said that it was a good assignment, so they would all be happy to take it on. The girl was happy, so at the same time registered this task. After a short time, they were greeted by the people on the bridge itself. They were told that in the camp, they would be rewarded according to the number of monsters they caught. Although the western part that they entered through was safe, there were a lot of monsters in all the other places, so you had to be well prepared. From now on, patients will definitely come regularly, our hero believed. But was Kim okay? If yes, then started Solo, it's time to mine gold. It was necessary to get rid of all the iron turns. Paddle if they started following them as soon as they left the camp. At the same time, the Arabiat was delivered directly from the inventory. Just because of this skill, he didn't need to carry arrow materials anymore. The damage was even higher than he expected. But one of the moles immediately pounced on Khan. Of course, the doctor could understand that he was being dealt damage, but at the same moment Kim appeared, who blocked him from the blow. He asked to get his crossbow and deal with the enemies. As soon as the crossbow was accessible from the internet, several arrows hit Kim. He thought that Decoder didn't do it specifically, but Khan said it was a potion arrow, so there's nothing wrong with that. Once all this was said, our characters continued their mole hunt. Once everything was settled, they brought all the moles to the tent. No one could believe that two people could catch so many moles. He and Kang immediately said they would sing Kang's bill, but Kim and Kang asked them to take their time. No one could understand how the two men who had come to Landry worked. However, at one point, everyone looked at Kim and realized that they probably didn't have any money since the man in the bandages. Kim immediately started complaining about how people didn't know anyone or anything when dinner started. He said that he's an incredible healer and they're so foul-mouthed. But Kant said that you should not be angry to deal with such people. In addition, now is the time to show up in those people who were injured in the battle with monsters. At the same time, a group of people entered, shouting for a healer. They were looking for help. The number of injured people has certainly increased since nightfall. Kim immediately started saying that we should start earning points by pointing out the wounded, but Kang said that it's fine. It was at this moment that the patients who needed him showed up. So did the man who screamed in pain. He went to the doctor and asked if he could see the victim himself. People immediately saw that they were the same adventurers, but Kim noticed that they were the ones who were laughing at them. The healer of Sky began to say that he wasn't incompetent enough to need the help of others. But Kang found something to ask. He asked if that was the reason the patient was in such a state. Of course, at this point, our character began to look at the wounded man with his vision. He noticed that there was a wound on his shoulder, so he should have used his eyes to see if I was coming. He noticed that the patient was now undergoing decomposing purulent paralysis, and there were also bite marks from a wild animal all over his body. Kim asked if Kang had found anything, but our main character only said that he was bitten by animals, that he was in a state of paralysis. Kim said it was probably a hound, and the healer said that he should stop laughing, because the paralyzing poison doesn't make people writhe in pain like that. But our main character said that the paralyzing poison of the Beloto hound is really dangerous and unique. If several conditions are met, then the effect of the decomposition poison makes itself felt. At the same time, our character cut a bit of a hack and turned his hand over. It was obvious that all the flesh on the man's arm had rotted away. No one could figure out what to do, so at one point our Kang took out his crossbow, all with muzzles. That he wasn't going to stop, that they were a couple of sleepwalkers, and so on. Many people gathered to watch the show, thinking that the doctor was going to take the patient's life, but Kim just shooed everyone away and said that it was just necessary to stop distracting the doctor, that everything was in perfect order. At that time, our Kang only thought that if he wanted to deliver energy to various parts of his body, it would be best to use the wind skill. At the same time, the arrows began to gradually enter the patient's body. Many people shouted that they simply did not understand that a person could easily kill another person like this. But Kang only asked if they really thought he was going to kill him. He asked not to call a perfectly healthy person dead. Everyone couldn't believe that the person was now healthy and the arrows didn't cause any harm. That's when our character started saying that below those hounds they are weak against the air attribute, so even the poison they use is susceptible to air. So therefore, if they treated this person so that air was constantly available, then the poison would simply evaporate. It was at this point that Kim pointed to another healer and said that it was because the healer had closed the man's wounds that he was in this position. The healer was shocked by this information, but Kang said that if that Celicit had been a little smarter and hadn't closed the patient's wounds, you could bet that nothing like this would have happened. The healer was immediately chased into glory, but Kang, with his face full of confidence, continued to press on his opponent. Of course, all the Zerials immediately began to condemn the healer. That he was behind him, that he even just ran away. Kim said that the show was simply magnificent. By that time, the patient had already woken up, and Kang was telling him that his arm would be completely healed in any second, but he still needed to be careful until his body was completely restored. Of course, the person was saying that he was very grateful, but Kim was asking if there was anything strange about this. Kang couldn't understand what Kim was talking about, so Kang hinted that it was one person who was able to get out, but where was his group? It was at this point that our hero understood the meaning of Kim's words, so he asked the man lying down, where is his group? But the man replied that they were attacked and scattered. As soon as these words were spoken, the person simply plunged into an incredible panic. He started asking where his teams were, did he survive alone? Of course, Kim and Kang realized that the situation was probably just terrible, because if there were several hounds, then the other shuttle groups were in danger. Kim said it was rather strange, because these hounds don't usually work in such large groups. But why is it like this? After all, suddenly increased monsters, the disappearance of a group of adventurers. It must be some rare monster, but then the story makes sense. It looks like they're all trapped in a mini dungeon. As soon as this conversation was over, both characters were immediately sent on their way through the dark forest. Kim kept asking what to do if the whole group was already dead. But Kang, all he said was that all they had to do was eat, and did he hear anything? At the same time, Kang started forward with a flashlight, where it was noticeable that one person was being put on in the swamp. The crossbow was immediately brought out of the inventory and the arrows hit the wolves. The man said that he seemed to be fine, but Kim called the horse, saying that most likely all the corpses of people who were near him have long been lying there, because they are decomposing. But don't hounds prefer fresh meat? At the same time, our main character said that there are those who eat such flesh, or rather undead. Undead, a dead creature that is brought to life again by the effects of black magic, a creature that all the priests look down on with disdain. Kang said that things have become quite problematic now. Will they even be able to win? After all, this was a hound whose leg bones could be seen through the flesh. As soon as the undead started howling in the air, all the Nakai immediately rushed into battle, but they decided to protect the human. However, the hound pounced on Kim, so Kang had to use his crossbow. Kim thanked him for saving her, but Gornea was already being sent quite far away. Kim, thanks to his frequent attacks with the wind attribute, was able to improve the wind attributes, and then smiled, because unbeknownst to Kim, he once again shot an arrow with the wind at him. By the time the battle continued, Kim was content to fight the hounds. But Kang was just as focused all the time, because he couldn't understand why the undead race hadn't moved at all since giving the signal to attack, as if it was waiting for its pack to die. At that moment, Kang realized that this was true, because when the last hound was defeated by Kim, the hound began to use necromancy. Kim just didn't believe it, because he knew that if things continued like this, there would be no end to the opponents. But Kang said that the solution was still to defeat the necromancer, but the main problem was that they just couldn't get to her. Would they even be able to defeat her if they fought in bliss? Our hero said that it was just like that, so Kim took a stance. Looking at this, Kang realized that even though Kim looked like Jacqueline the wizard, but Kim's main skill was Agar, which allowed him to attract all enemies to him. He was like Taki, so as soon as Kim activated this skill, he was chased by many enemies. Our character thanks him for this action, so he realized that now dealing with necromancers will not be a problem, because according to Lafay, the source of a rare monster's power lies in its relic. If you had to deal with a particularly troublesome rare monster, all you had to do was chop up its artifact. At the same time, Kang charged straight at the enemy. He used his gaze skill and was able to find the very artifact that was in the neck. Thanks to his skill, he was able to cut the throat, or rather the neck. He leaned back and was able to activate his crossbow, taking aim as he thought it would work. But at the same time, he noticed that one of the train stations attacked his hand, biting it off. The crossbow immediately fell out of his hands. The necromancer began to speak in a human voice, because how could such a pathetic person dare to encroach on his relic? Our protagonist turned around and could only obscure the fact that the hound was flying at him, going to eat it. She thought that she had won, but at the same moment our hero smiled and said that it was very good that his crossbow was not like everyone else. He immediately made the crossbow disappear from the ground and transformed it in his other hand. The monster of course received a charge in its network, after which it was killed. After all, our doctor couldn't find his hands, so the person he saved brought him radon. The man in question turned out to be a healer, but Kang said he could worry about himself, so instead he asks him to look away. She noticed that a lot of people definitely needed help. But where did Kim go anyway? By this time, Khan had found his companion under a horde of Armstrongs. They started saying that they both made it, but Kang started scaring Kim by waving his severed Dalian. However, if they want to start returning to the camp, they will have to start treating people. At the same time, the Order of Yerva was called up. Cases are transferred back to the base camp. Our character looked and saw that he needed to straighten the position of the torn body and then sew both parts of the whip together. Even if it will hang out, it will still hold on a little. At the same time, in less than a second, the arm was stitched together. Kim couldn't see enough, but why didn't our hero accept help from another healer? However, our protagonist only replied that he doesn't like to rely on other healers. Just as he finished talking to Kim, who was about to go to bed, the priests arrived. Cardinal Ashalo of the Ivor Church introduced himself. His whole appearance spoke for itself, so our doctor introduced himself. All the people immediately started whispering and swearing, so their leader asked everyone to be quiet. He said that they had all heard about the unknown doctor from Huey's, that he was rumored to have surpassed a top-level priest in his ability to heal. But we immediately decided to get down to business, so our character asked us to follow him. By then, the men had followed the group, but all they saw was a crowd of corpses that reeked of rot. The priest said that no one would have thought that something like this would happen in such a place, so he immediately ordered the first team to clear the area of Black Mama. But the second team had to search the area, the third team would have to move the bodies to the camp. Finally, a clear team had to collect the bodies that were infected and burn them. At the same time, the sacred flame started to take effect. Our main character said it was impressive, but he was still sure that the TLA undead could rise from the dead if they weren't burned. The head priest immediately asked our protagonist to come over and take a look at this rare monster. As soon as the Abra came to him, they started looking and thinking that this picture is just incredibly terrible, because the smell is actually really bad, but the priest most likely smelled dark magic. At the same time, the priest asked our characters permission to take the body to the church for study, which our protagonist did not mind. At the same time, the priest took out the sacred water of the church, which is called the Holy Water of Dawn. One of the people was just shocked to hear this word. But our protagonist, as usual, did not understand anything. So I explained to him that the holy water of dawn is water created by placing pure water on the altar at dawn, over which they prayed for a year. Even though it was in a bottle, it exuded divine power. One bottle can clear hundreds, if not thousands not to go. The priest said that if they were given the corpse, they would give this sacred water to our main character. The person who was standing next to him said that this particular item couldn't be bought with money, and since he had already destroyed the artifact, he thought that he would be at a loss. So it was at this point that the priest gave away such a treasure, and the priest also said that they were thanking the person for this work and winning a personal battle. They all sincerely gave it away. Of course, many priests, except for the leader, were not happy about this, but they said that he was just a healer who could not tolerate unclean undead. As soon as it was morning, the same guy from the guild burst into his room, saying that it was the adventurers guild leader who came to see Kang. Our main character, without breaking his eyes, immediately decided to get up and meet with the head. They both sat down to a cup of tea afterward. The guild leader's name was Ryuan. Of course, our character said that he was glad that such a guest dropped by, and the head of the branch himself could not help but come after hearing such good news. Of course, our Kang pretended to be pleased. He knew that being incompetent, Ryuan was just a person. It couldn't be that his eyes fell on a healer who was infamous in the guild. Obviously, he had some sort of plan. It was at this moment that the head himself took out a certain potion. The guide immediately started saying that this is an endurance potion from the endurance curve. Golden mushrooms are generally the rarest of them. As soon as all this was said, our main character immediately drank this potion. The head started to say something, but our protagonist interrupted him and said that he was quite exhausted right now. He immediately broke the potion and said that they should get to the point. He asked if the chapter needed the holy water of dawn. The head immediately said that he would like to offer a deal since the person in front of him was such a shrewd person. He immediately said that he knew that Kang was a world traveler. How does the head even know this information? How much more does he know? However, at the same time, the head began to say that it is worth thinking about other travelers with different abilities. You should not treat them only in this way, because their origin is unknown. Not only can they not reach high positions even if they prove their abilities, but there are also healers that have not received official confirmation. Kang immediately asked what he meant by that, but the head only said that he would get the mark of Sel Idol and sponsor the Hersher family if they gave him the potion. Our main character said that according to the rules, he can't become an official healer, but the head only laughed. He said that everything can be circumvented, and our protagonist will receive recognition of the healer's experience from an outstanding family. If he accepts a candidate, he will even be able to get into the position of a royal healer. In other words, after rising from the bottom, his life will blossom. Our character said that he couldn't believe it, but the head only said that the holy water of dawn was worth it. But what Lewis was really thinking was that if he got his hands on it, he could move to a bigger and richer place, like a tiny little provincial town like Hind, and then make it into a better place. One jerk as an official healer is not a problem. At the same time, Kang thought about it and said that he would decline such an offer. The cup of tea flew out of the head's hands. He couldn't understand why the person in front of him refused. But our character only said that then he will need to resort to bribes, and he wants to achieve everything himself. The headman at this point said that he simply didn't believe it, but Kang said that the influence of the headmaster's master is not so high in his family that he can't get the potion himself, so our main character will still remain on his own. At the same time, the head simply lost his temper, so he had to be calmed down. As soon as the two heroes left the ward, Kim couldn't understand why the guild gave out rewards with items. Kang recalled that the head of So had already profited well from other groups, so he told Kim that he had received something good. At that moment, an alarm was announced in the city saying that there was an invasion of monsters. They asked everyone to join the defense of the camp and so on. Kim and Kang couldn't figure out what to do, but at one point Kang realized that there would also be profit, so he suggested that they go to the place where many adventurers are currently fighting against certain creatures. Kang decided to take a position on one of the trees, and then Kim activated the stone to apply the skills of vampire tendencies on himself. His strength was increased for a while, so he immediately started dealing with the monsters. At one point, Kang noticed that there was trouble in the rear because there was a huge and main monster operating there. All the bees were away from him, but the monster was too strong for spears and arrows. None of the attacks could work on him, so our protagonist decided to use his crossbow and special arrows made of steel moles. The attack was successful, so Kim also joined the fight, making a special cut on the bear's neck so that he could finish it off with his dagger. This dagger was able to bring down a huge bear to the ground, because the blow was critical. At the same time, a lot of people started shouting and cheering that they were able to protect the settlement, but Kim felt even better, as if he had become a hero of the city. By that time, Kim was asking us to go further, but our main character was standing on the side and trying to play roulette. Of course, he couldn't get anything out of it, just like Kim had said, but it was still worth a try. Kim calmed down his companion, and then Vasilo ran up to the two characters Vasilo, who expressed huge gratitude to those two because only they made the greatest contribution. They immediately gave our heroes a special reward, a tavern voucher. Of course, both heroes were happy to visit such a beautiful place. They said that they were quite happy, but it was at this moment that Kana was noticed by a certain person. It was Mr. Ruse. Of course, Roz couldn't believe that he would be able to meet the doctor in such a place. Kim asked if both were legal, but Kang only said that it was the person he treated a few days ago. Roz immediately said that he was very grateful, and also handed over a bag of gold, saying that this was the payment for the treatment that he couldn't provide it then. Kang, of course, even forgot about this, and will also return the sword that he took away by accident. Of course, Roz immediately took the sword and almost burst into tears. He couldn't believe that he would ever be able to be with him again. After all this, he also sat down at the table and began to ask what they had forgotten in such a place. Roz was told that they were taking a break from their completed tasks, so if the two of them had time, Roz immediately handed over a request to assemble a squad. He said that it turns out that a portal to a dungeon has recently appeared near the Hind settlement, so his younger cousin asked him to join the squad. But Roz he can't go because he needs to pay back the debt. Of course, Kim said that it wasn't worth borrowing money from the guild if the guild was starving to death. But Kang asked what they should do. After all, the dungeon rewards are quite attractive. Kim immediately said that he just wanted it all. Roz was also pleased that the boys were willing to go with him, that he could rely on them. However, at the same time, he remembered Kang's words about how he liked to watch someone beg him to save someone, but would it be okay? 3 days later, Kang seems to have prepared well for the campaign, but still said that his wrist has also healed. He is ready to receive 100,000 gold. But was Naz really able to get it now? It was at this point that Kim noticed that Kang Smog would get a certain skill that could return arrows. Kim was shocked, but Kang was sure that this was how it was supposed to work out. At that moment, a girl named Putane met them on Nackart Hill, and then Chris and both of our heroes. Of course, there was not only a girl in the squad, there was also Rakramarty Shiwire. He definitely didn't fall in love with the person that was behind everyone, or rather Kim. But another man, whose name was Azel, also came out and urged everyone to calm down. Of course, he wasn't a leader, but he still gave off this aura. Once everyone was ready, then we could go to work. Everyone got into the portal, and then this portal moved everyone to the dungeon. One of the magicians activated light magic, which formed light, but Khan began to monitor and look for all the information about the dungeon. Our main character didn't feel any moisture or wind, which could hint at the presence of black magic. Everyone was talking and straining each other, but still at one point our main Grey realized that someone was going to attack them. Scarabs appeared. Everyone immediately decided to attack the scarabs, waving their swords and using magic all around. 2 people were immediately attacked by scarabs, so our proton had to ask if Shuire knew Shuire how to use wind magic. Our main character immediately used the potion around him and asked to visit around. As soon as this potion was scattered around, all the insects immediately died. The girl asked me to tell her how the man did it, but our character said it was a professional secret. By that time, the white-haired man was also set on fire, and he offered everyone a drink of water, but it turned out to be bottles of mana. Our hero asked if it was okay for him to share such reserves, but the man replied that everything was fine, because he knew a familiar healer who gives him these potions on the cheap. It was at this moment that our hero could not believe that any person would be and become so kind. By that time the troop had reached the fork in the road, and the girl could smell the black magic coming from the left-hand path. People started thinking, what is it? We thought that we should go on the right path, but then our main character said that on the contrary, we need to choose our own path. At the same time, our healer got in the way and said that they should have taken the easy way out. No one believed him, no one could think what he was telling them. Why is he even going to take that path if there's black magic in the other? But our hero, as usual, said that he knows what made the guy lose his temper. He took our hero by the scruff of the neck and said that he was just a madman if he wanted to go to that tunnel. Is he in his right mind? But Kim immediately asked our character to explain first, while the girl next to him wanted to listen. But the guy still said that nothing that he would say was worth listening to. If they constantly listened to him, then nothing would work. The guy shouted that it was for this reason that it was worth taking people invited by a newbie. The girl immediately started to get upset, but others said they didn't want to go the same way. At the same time, the guy hit our protagonist in the shoulder and said that if he wants to go there himself, then let him go. Immediately, a group of 3 people went where they thought they should go, but Kang and his companions stayed where they were. Kang said it wasn't important, but shouldn't I follow my group? But Tina said that they were recommended to her by her brother so that he knows exactly how to choose people and trust them. At the same time, Kang said that he was very grateful for being trusted and then asked, what about that white-haired guy? But the guy only said that he just felt that he should trust the healer too. By that time, the group of 3 people walking forward noticed that there wasn't a single monster everywhere, which seemed very strange. But what happened to that guy? Sure enough, they continued down the tunnel, but the girl kept turning around and couldn't figure out why Tina had gone with the party members she'd brought. But Azel, did he follow the teacher too? At the same time, a group of 3 people heard a strange sound. They were enveloped in black magic, and from the looks on the adventurers' faces, they seemed to know that they were trapped. The girl immediately asked everyone to run to the sides. Time after time, they tried to run away, but they couldn't as they fell into more and more traps. Sahida also fell for one of them. It was obvious that some spears or bayonets were formed in place of the trap. They tried to cure her with the help of healing magic, but it became noticeable that everything became even worse. Everyone realized that the girl turned out to be a curse. They realized that only a priest could dispel the curse. It was at this point that Kang ran up to the entire group and said that he had warned everyone about this path. No one could figure out how it got there. At the same time, Tina appeared, noticing that the entire group was on a sealed magic circle that had been released from the seal. He immediately realized that if it was a sealed dark spell, it was probably reacting to divine power. Was this a trap for the priests? How did the guy in front of him understand everything and was able to predict everything? At the same time, the guy asked to heal her friend, because if he came, already knowing everything in advance. But Kang only asked him why he wanted it so badly. After all, they are the ones who turned off the team member's opinion and went ahead. The guy started saying that the guy in front of him was incredibly petty. But as soon as he looked at his girlfriend, he realized that there was nothing he could do. All he had to do was take a kneeling position and say that he had made a mistake in front of Kang. He was asking to save his girlfriend. He was asking on his knees. At the same time, our hero made a face and said that this was exactly what he wanted. He touched the girl with his hand and used hemostasis. Kim asked what they were going to do since they didn't have anything like it. But our character just said that they don't really have it, but they do have what they got not so long ago. At the same time, our main character was able to get the sacred water. He realized that this particular water would be enough to cure that very curse. As soon as a drop of liquid hit the wound, then at the same time, Azel was asked if it would all work out. No one could believe it, but a few seconds later, Kang and Kim appeared, carrying their friend. Everyone immediately started running up to our hero saying that they idolized him and so on. But the guy who was a little angry from the very beginning said that he had never seen such a skilled aimer. Azel was standing off to the side, so the group continued walking. The guy sighed, but still in one moment the group was in front of the boss's team. Kim understood that there were fewer monsters around and so on. They were having arguments, but still someone pushed the door forward, so the boss himself showed up and said that his victims had finally come to him on their own. The entire group was engulfed in heat, no one could understand what was going on, but immediately the main monster of the ancient dungeon appeared in front of them. The monster's black mana overwhelmed the priests who were nearby. Everyone understood that they couldn't retreat and so on, but could they even stand up to something like this? While they were thinking about it all, the monster said that such people who came all this way to him just now are sure that they will become a sacrifice for the great dried fruit. He asked all of them to listen carefully because everyone knows him. But just as the entity was about to say something, it was somehow immediately torn apart. The creature couldn't understand what was happening to it, but at the same time, the monster was gone altogether. Our main character at this point said that the effectiveness of his skill was simply on top, because he used the water of dawn on the very arrow that was in his arsenal. No one else could believe what they were seeing. They understood that the monster was defeated, but how did the person standing next to them even get the sacred water? Kim asked Nu, why did he use holy water on the final boss? But Kang only said that people who use their trump card at the very end are strange. At the same time, we realized that the return of arrow's skill has been applied, so he was able to get his arrow back. He immediately said that the main monster of the dungeon is dead, which means that the dungeon itself will soon disintegrate. The guy realized that this was probably going to happen, so they decided that it was time to start drawing the magic circles of the exit, but since they had a little time, they could draw a circle. Azel also said that it seems to take a lot of mana to support a magic circle. But still, everyone already knows that it is everyone who is trying to find items in the boss room for themselves. Since the dungeon may break up, you need to search as soon as possible. Of course, Tina immediately went to the altar. She noticed that it was covered in blood, but our hero realized that most likely there would be something under it. Just under the table was a certain box with a pentagram on it. Our protagonist immediately opened it, which caused a horde of zombies to appear. The guy asked everyone to get ready, and then a huge number of zombies began to appear. Kim said that the physiotherapist fights well, chopping the zombie himself along the way. Everyone who was in this place began to fight, and involuntarily sweat broke out on our hero's head. He decided to use stone arrows. However, he still realized that the undead shouldn't be able to escape when the boss is defeated, but what happens? By that time, everything was finished. Our Kang immediately went to the core to check something, but noticed that the boss didn't have a DR. Kang immediately turned to Kim, but Kim only fell into his arms. It was noticeable that everyone who was in the dungeon at that moment had fallen asleep. They weren't dead, but they were saved. So what he killed when was a clone. In that case, one could tell that the real boss was among them. At the same time, our main character immediately started shooting sacred arrows at the corpses, but only one of the people decided to react. It was Azel. Our protagonist apologized for shooting him, but still, he thought it wasn't an attack, but a recovery arrow. Azel said that he was caught, but still, as he sees, but Azel is a rascal. Being agile is its essence. He was defending with his instincts, so it seems like he deflected the arrow, a coincidence. Our protagonist immediately did not react to all this and asked, why then is Azel the only one who is still completely fine? But Azel said that Kang was also fine, which is why our main character remembered the very bootleg of the potion that he was given, and also the fact that usually rogues do not use weapons endowed with black magic. As soon as it all started, our Kang immediately jumped on Azel and said that they don't really use these blades unless they are the main bosses of the dungeon. Azel watched as his body was attacked, his blade unsheathed. He said that now he can see how smart the person sitting in front of him is. Azel at the same time Arkil show himself, he showed that he is the boss monster of this dungeon. Azel Kroa, the apostle of the forgotten god. Of course, at first Kang thought it was just a mage in front of him, but it really turned out to be a boss. Azel immediately said that he could no longer make excuses. But until now, no one could figure out who it was, but now the laziness in front of it is really good, so Niall said that he was going to offer it as a living offering no matter what. Just like I've been doing so far. Azel immediately stabbed himself in the arm. Bloodlust, murder, and madness shone in his eyes. He says he did it all in the name of that very being. Our protagonist could only prepare for an attack and could not understand how many people the person in front of him killed. Niall immediately decided to attack. He began to approach the Alu with incredible speed. Their clinics were able to collide with each other, so Kang had to get out his crossbow. His bullet didn't hit, and once again, Azel dodged. He went through his attack again, trying to drive his dagger into Kang's heart and saying that his master had chosen him, that he was an obscure rogue, but that Kang had made him the main one. He even wondered how happy Renzo would be when our hero became the victim. Azel's dagger hit the body of our parasite, who continued to lean on his screams, saying that he would only do the same thing to the other people who were with him. At one point, our protagonist noticed something strange, or rather, that Azel stopped his attack. He noticed that Azel was now standing in front of the portal and said that now our hero will not need to do anything because now he will come to an end. Khan noticed that all this time, Azel had only been drawing magic circles. By then, several hands had surrounded our main protagonist, and Azel was shouting that he was about to become a sacrifice. A lot of hands gathered around Khan, and Azel thought it was alright, but at one point, light started coming from that portal. It was a whole protagonist, who said that Azel was actually a rogue if he used the blade in such a way that it really surprised him. It was at this point that Dodger noticed that his hands were back to normal, that his stingray was no longer glowing, so he tried to use another circle, but this time the circle just collapsed when it came right up to the character. Ayl simply couldn't believe how the power of a god that was upon him couldn't possibly be able to deal with just a healer. But Kang himself said that he had one question. What was that thing under the altar? Was that thing Ayla? Azel noticed this glowing sphere, understood that this is the realm of his god. But our character said that in fact there was a sphere of God's power in front of him, but it can't be that the power that he received from God worked on the relic. Azel says he was sure she was wearing a strong one. Khan knew, of course, that even if it was a dark wizard seal, it was just black magic. Kang smiled, because he knew that of course she had disappeared from the divine power of the holy water. But has he gone mad? For the god he serves cannot be forgotten, that he will soon be reborn. Azel immediately recovered on him. With a blade, he thought he couldn't lose and so on. He had asked for Recliva's return, so it was clear that he had entered his rogue mode. His attacks have become much faster, so now our protagonist has started getting maimed. He knew that if this sphere was so important to Dodger, then let him take it himself. At the same time, the sphere was launched into the air, and he immediately ran after the sphere. It was aimed only at her, but as soon as he was sure that he would get it, our protagonist immediately drew it with his skill, and then created a stone arrow. Azel was hit right in the back of the head, and he was seriously injured, so he decided to use his spiked skill to share it. This attack is not only for attack and defense, but also to heal. Our hero realized that this was his chance, so he immediately went to make his way through this forest. He took these spikes with him, and then created a spell using them and loaded them into his crossbow. His attack immediately hit Ida, who was screaming in pain. And then I immediately fell to my knees and said that he just couldn't believe me. He was very desperate, but did he really think that he would be able to do anything? It was at this point that Azel said that his god had told him that the gaze of an indescribable presence was felt above them. So the person in front of him is the same as him. At the same time, our protagonist realized that most likely God can see the administrator of the status window, so Kang decided to say that he doesn't believe in God, but he can't deny that he has powers. Azel immediately gathered all his strength and said that one day he would also crave more, but before he could finish, Kang shot him in the forehead with arrows that finished him off. Khan was sure that he's not going to be the same madman, that he doesn't plan to be lazy with the administrator, but still thinks it's time to get all the guys to wake up. By that time, everyone was starting to wake up. Kang went to Kim first and told him that something strange had happened. Immediately, Tina noticed Azel's dead body, and they started shouting that they didn't believe he was dead. But Kang said that there was no reason to be surprised, since he was the main boss and everyone was alive only because of the healer. By that time, the healer had told them everything, so no one could even think of such an outcome. There wasn't even a shadow of doubt that the dark mana was coming from Azel. Kim asked him if he would ever guess that the file was a bad guy, but all he said was that usually people who look too good are not to be trusted. They talk too much, show kindness for no apparent reason, use too polite expressions, and it is from such people that you should stay as far away as possible. Kim thought Kang was exactly the same, but he didn't say it out loud. Our character had already asked Shuire to continue using the exit magic circle, making it as big as possible. All caricature thought about was that it was a holy power comparable to that possessed by high-ranking priests, and that very determination. This was what the man in front of her was hiding in front of her. She was even sure that it was an inquisitor of the order standing in front of her, so she wanted to show herself as best she could. The priestess was standing off to the side by then. She was very far away from everything, so Kang decided to approach her. He said that a human death is not something to be surprised about on the continent of Azel. Not leaving the bodies like that is a bit questionable, and Kim thought the same about it. He understood that usually mass-summoned dungeons were the same in appearance, but their bodies had unique traits. They were most likely adventurers sacrificed by Azel. But at the same time, the priestess said that she wanted to say the same thing, because as a priestess of the order, she can't just turn a blind eye to it. He looked at her and knew that she was too shy to speak out, but could they help her? The girl immediately told everyone to pray for the deceased. As soon as everyone stood around this pile of corpses, the prayer began. A bright sacred light lit up the dungeon. Everyone was asking to save the souls of the dead. Kang, on the other hand, knew that he had already done the most important thing, that he was able to deal with the lying so everyone should be at peace now. As soon as the prayer ended, the achievement was received for what he was able to feel in the ritual. This skill is called Dead Calm. Looking at Kim, Kang realized that he had also received this skill. At the same time, Tina asked everyone to move the bodies to the magic circle because it would be nice if they had Maraman to wrap them all up. Tina said she was the one who could handle all of this. At the same time, the girl stood aside and covered her body with her weight. She said that even though this mana barrier was small, it still looked amazing. She also finished, but couldn't notice that Azel was behind her. At one point, Azel immediately stabbed her with a dagger. No one could believe that Azel was able to survive all the attacks. But could it be that the creature that gave Azel the power could make Azel's body rise from the dead? Everyone was shocked, but Kang only said that he could handle everything. The girls were still in shock, and the Ales immediately went on the attack. Khan could only hope that the priestess would help him now. Once the priestess had collected her thoughts, she used exorcism, which helped scare Azel away. The file was not in itself, so I decided to attack the priestess, but this time our character was able to prevent it. The priestess continued to use her exorcism over and over again, so that Azel's eyes were white. He started to hold onto his chest and then took out the core. Azel said that everything he does is in the name of his master. He made it clear that the Underdark would be destroyed, just as rocks began to fall from the sky. Azel immediately spied on the reverse side and started saying his lord's name, saying that all the things he saddled were just for him. Our character went to his group and asked what was the priestess's condition. At first, everyone said that everything was fine, but then the girl replied that she couldn't feel magic, which meant that her magic power couldn't come out. Most likely, she was injured and lost her life. Magic power, so the bastard who attacked them, or rather Azel, meant it as a sacrifice. The girl, as soon as she saw that the dungeon was collapsing further, began to say that everything is for them, of course, that they don't even have a teleportation scroll. They said that if they had a little more time, everything would work out. But Khan asked if the magic circle was ready. He was told that it was true, so the smile couldn't leave Kang's face. He just looked at Tina and said that she probably knew enough about magic to know the type of circle magic at a glance, and has no advanced skill. No matter how you looked at it, she was closer to being a mage than an archer. Tina started talking that it can't do anything, that it's useless. But a block that fell from behind prompted our protagonist to ask her for one last time to help. Tina said that of course she is not experienced and so on, that she might make a mistake, but she's willing to do whatever it takes to survive, or rather try. Our hero looked at her with a smile. He understood that he was joking. I drew this triple magic circle, so that requires channeling the magic power of 2 or more people in it. If Shuire had been there, she would definitely have used the clone skill, but now Tina was there, so all our protagonist had to do was activate her spell to help Tina. Several boulders were flying towards our group at that moment. They were ready to die, but at one point they gave off a kind of glow. Our hero opened his eyes and saw a strange room, as well as Shuire, who jumped with happiness. They asked her where they were, but the girl only replied that they were in the fortress of Vermilion. But if it was Vermilion, Kim assumed they were in a rich city called Commer, or the city by the lake. Due to the presence of the magic tower, it is the safest city in the western part of the continent. This led to the nobles and wizards gathering here. Of course, this was the first time for our character to be here. At the same time, a lot of people started running through the door. Most likely, they were also mages of this tower. As soon as they ran inside, they noticed that there was a wall in front of them. They were very happy and alarmed at her appearance, and someone even came up and started hitting her on the head with a magic stick. Shuira screamed in pain, but the man continued to hit her on the head, saying that she probably had an incredibly huge sense of arrogance since she was saying that to the tower. It was a certain old man who was clearly a certain magister. After a short conversation, we realized that this was Tansel Riolis, the head of the magic tower blog. He said that Shuire was an incredibly obedient girl, that she had made everyone's ears buzz about becoming an adventurer, and that she had almost died. He even said that most likely our hero did something significant according to the stories. Of course, the master immediately said that everyone had done a good job, that he would do everything else, and also give others a rest. The healer lay on the bed all night and couldn't sleep, so he decided to go out on the balcony where Tina was standing. She immediately met the healer and said that it had been a long time since they had visited the tower, and she felt a bit nostalgic. Kang realized that Tina was from the tower, so the girl apologized for what happened in Palmedi, that there was an emergency, but our protagonist said that she shouldn't apologize, because only thanks to me they are all alive. Tina was clearly pleased with the praise. She said that she used to be one of the people who was in the Golden Towers. She showed a talent for magic at an early age, so she was forced to go to the tower, but she still enjoyed swinging her sword. She always missed dueling with her brother. It turned out that her talent wasn't that outstanding. But did she leave the tower because of that? Tina replied that it was all true, that she was still well versed in both magic and the clinic, so if she had settled on magic, everything would have worked out. Our hero understood that she was talking about unrealized potential, but at the same time our protagonist said that he considers it important to do what the person likes. If suddenly a person finds out that you are less talented than the others, then you can use one trick, or rather finish everything off by any means. Tina was encouraged, because the words that sometimes you can cheat caught her off guard. The next morning, the entire group began to disperse. Many of them want to finish their work, and some of them will go to train. But what about Tina? After all, if she is not sure, then she can go with our heroes. It was at this point that Tina lit up and said that she wanted to become a magic sword. She said that people might laugh at her, but she still felt that she had chosen the right path. Kang looked at her and handed her a letter, saying that if she was going to become a master swordsman, she could visit one place. She could visit the village of Legend Pharaoh, the coldest part of the northern area. Yes, there was that crazy, but still the strongest magic swordsman our character knew. He can even vouch for his abilities, so it might even be useful to observe him. Tina broke into a smile and immediately said that she would be on her way. Our protagonists kept going until another girl caught up with them. She asked them to wait a bit, and then we see that our protagonists are in the Scarlet Tower, the professor's room. The professor apologized for delaying the travelers, but Kang said that there was nothing wrong with it, but who is sitting next to the professor? At the same time, the guy confessed that his name is Sisun, that he is a professor of the Dark Tower. Of course, the Dark Tower was known as the Tower for Dark Wizards. Their main goal is to find proper methods for applying dark magic and dark mana. The professor immediately said that he had heard about the incident, so he asked for a meeting with our hero. Sisun, on the other hand, couldn't calm down. He said that the main boss was an incredible dark magician. He immediately began to ask questions, after all, whether his old things are among the loot, because if everything is so, then he would love to buy them. Our protagonist understood that there is a sphere of the same god there, but he does not want to sell it. But was there anything else? Of course, our hero said that he forgot about one thing. He forgot about the blade, so does the professor want to buy it? Sisun couldn't believe his eyes. He was incredibly happy. He said he was just looking forward to seeing how amazing it would be when he did it. Sisun immediately said that he would give whatever our healer wanted. Our character immediately began to rummage through the items provided by the professor. He found a strange man. As soon as he took it, the little man began to scream and move violently. Everyone was shocked by this, so at the same time, Sisun tried to remove it. But our character noticed that after these sounds, his mother began to restore him, so Kang said that he would take this item. As a result, he even has an incredible amount of books, potion recipes, such as freezing. At one point, he even suggested that he stay for a while, because the professor gave him permission. He said that he was very grateful for the rescue of his student, that they themselves asked to stay there. Kim realized that everyone in the Scarlet Tower is not a jerk, so he also agrees to stay in it. By then, our protest had gone to explore the rooms. He saw that people were brewing potions. He approached one person and said that it was better not to add. But the wizard just looked at him and said it was all nonsense. Kim realized that there were assholes in the tower after all, so he decided to move on. As the two characters walked down the hallway, Kim asked why our protagonist told him not to put this ingredient in there. But at the same moment, a wall exploded behind our heroes. Kim couldn't understand what was going on there, but Kang only ran to the place where the substance exploded, where it was noticeable that all the people were in confusion. Their eyes were watering. They could not breathe this air. They tried to activate the protective shield, but the shield started to melt. People became very hot. They could not tolerate this temperature. They felt that they should get out as soon as possible. However, at the same time, their path was blocked by our main character, who said that they would not go anywhere. That's why he told them not to put that ingredient in there. Everyone realized that this was exactly the guy who was trying to tell them. They immediately started telling him to get out of the way and so on. But our character said that sweet grass is not poisonous, that it is not worth being afraid of, that the smoke is not dangerous, that they can only exhale calmly, but the mana in their body melts. People immediately started throwing up something on the floor. They started to realize that I can't use mana and so on. They immediately tried to approach the exit, but our main protagonist said that they probably forgot where they were, that they were in the center of the Scarlet Tower. What happens if they open the door? The Tower of Magicians, or an institute built for magicians to study magic and accumulate power, which means that this place is full of all kinds of magic items and devices that use mana. If this smoke leaks out, all devices will fail. Kang made it clear to them exactly that, and also said that even if they were poisoned by the herb, there was a hope that they would recover in time, that he even knew how to make it. The kids started saying that they were saved. But our main character said that eliminating the smoke is much more urgent than curing all the people. Not that wizards would die without mana, but a wizard who can use it is no different from a dead person. Even though Kang didn't care, people immediately started bowing at their feet and saying that I would do anything to save them. At this point, our character said that if they ask so much, then he got caught helping, but he is still a healer. Kim asked, do those people really need to inhale all the smoke to eliminate it? But all he said was that it would take too long, but now they were together with potions. He immediately asked all the guys to bring him the ingredients that he asked for. He knew that if he transformed all the smoke into a certain shape, then everything would work out. At the same time, Kim began to feel the same way due to the low amount of mana, but our main character has already created a certain potion. He knew that the effect of this potion simply couldn't be rendered useless, so the moment the potion was released, it turned all the smoke in the room into balls. They immediately began to fall to the ground, and our character said that no one should just stand still. He asked everyone to start collecting these balls. The guys removed almost all the balloons, but still made a mess. The sweetgrass slots were also ready, and Kang asked everyone to apologize to the shop owner. By then, the guy who started it all had asked about the sweet herb he'd put in. He said that he was sure that he put down the coastal grass, but our protagonist said that the fragrant grass refers to the instrument herbs that have changed due to the extreme presence of mana. It is usually an herb that helps to mix all the ingredients. The girl said that it was strange, because such a dangerous thing is boiled in the Tower of Magicians. Most of the ingredients are grown there. The greenhouse is controlled by a mana fueling system, and it is this information that has raised questions for our main character. At the same time, Kang ran out of the room and ran towards Tansel. Kim didn't catch up with him. But still, this danger could have caused much bigger problems if nothing was done. At the same time, Tansel himself was on the line. He said that he had also heard from Amtohu in the store, but still he couldn't come because of the lighting, so he still trusted access to the greenhouse. Of course, it was very good that Shuire was able to catch up with our squad. They came running to the greenhouse at the same time. But when we went inside, our main character realized that everything did not look safe at all. He immediately took out his crossbow and noticed the magic circle that controlled everything. He noticed that the mana inside was high, that the circles were broken. The problem was with the magic circle, but where was it? Shura said he was probably inside. By that time, a certain vine was heading for Kim. Kang immediately noticed something was wrong and was able to pull his friend aside. Kim couldn't figure out what it was, but he knew the answer. He said that it was a monster that appeared because of mana. It was an Ivy Martin monster plant. The mages immediately tried to use wind magic on it to cut it down. Ivy didn't like it, squeaked in pain, and then tried to attack the girl. The girl threw this attack, but she couldn't do anything, so Kang came to the rescue, protecting the girl with his body and cutting the tentacle. The girl thought that it was much easier than it seemed, but Kim asked not to relax because the tentacle immediately appeared and struck its blow. Our protagonist realized that the prune branch was regenerating, so he had to get a crossbow and use its arrows on his target. 2 tentacles were severed, but immediately the tentacles grew back. Our main character immediately said that the plant is different because the regeneration rate was also different. Regeneration was significantly faster when Miss Shuire resolved it than when they did. It was probably here that the herbs were growing too fast due to the large amount of mana, and the thing in front of them was completely absorbing it. At the same time, the fire flew into the plant. But it was alive again, which meant it had resistance to fire, but even at this rate, it wouldn't be able to catch her. They thought about retreating, but at the same time, Kang said that they should not retreat because they have something that can be used for such a thing. Kang held up the same scented herb concentrate pellets, then loaded them into his crossbow. With a single shot, the flower began to behave incredibly strangely. It immediately began to make up a huge amount of smoke. Kim was shouting about how they couldn't use auras now because of him, but our protagonist said they just needed to kill that thing with normal attacks until it died. Our hero immediately took out his blade and made an attack directly on the flower. Tentacle after tentacle was chopped off from the flower. It was noticeable that the regeneration rate was reduced. Kim also noticed that they should work on a different part of the plant's body, so he decided to cut its roots. He knew that he was the only person who didn't care if his mana was melted. By then, Kim had drawn enough attention to himself that he started yelling at Kang to finally be able to use the incision. Of course, they did it. He asked Shuire take them to the main mana circle. As soon as they arrived at that place, the girl was shocked. She saw that the magic circle was in perfect order. She knew that something terrible was going to happen soon, or rather a mana explosion. Kim immediately started to worry because he thought that he would explode and so on. But Kang asked the girl if there was any way to stop the mana injection. The girl immediately started shouting that a low-ranked mage wouldn't even be able to see the wiring diagram and so on, and if it was exposed, it would immediately explode. The girl suggested just running away, while our hero understood that it doesn't matter, since such a powerful spell, then its destructive power will simply become impossible. Not only them, even the people outside will be hit. At the same time, our protagonist decided to use his gaze on the object. He knew that he had to find a way to get money no matter what. The infernal circle was already bursting in different directions, and our main character began to say that he had begun to see. The girl was shocked by these actions, saying that the KGB should not approach the object. But all he said was that it was now a day of Kalpani pure mana, which turned into a big bomb. He knew that normal attacks wouldn't work, so he decided to use the same core. He knew that if this item gave an incredible level of magic resistance, then he would succeed. At the same time, the circle began to beat the energy of our hero. Everyone was afraid for his condition, but he only understood that he had to hit the connection point no matter what. He took out a core and immediately used his throwing skill. He rashed all the Zadichnit with a single throw. The core hit the very center, it began to contact the eye magic circle, and then it just fell to the ground, disabling this circle behind it. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. What even happened? But Kang just turned around and smiled. Kim, as well as the girl, just jumped on the doctor and said that they just believed in him and were very afraid. After all that happened, the whole group decided to call the professor. He could not believe it, but said that he was sure that a malfunction of the circle was to blame. The girl said that even the mage tower wouldn't be able to survive if such incidents continued, that if it fell, the barrier and the city would simply be abandoned. The girl asked to explore the mana center, but the professor said that even if he wanted to, it would be too problematic. Kim also thought about it, but Kang asked, "Who is the administrator of the Scarlet Tower?" This man was Midasur Highway. By that time, led by the girl, our group went to him. He asked what had brought them to him. Then the explanation of the situation began. Kang certainly didn't want to go there in the first place, but he'll probably sort it out on his own. However, as soon as our main character started talking, Hive started shouting, saying that they were talking nonsense, that the devices in the Mana Center were created using the best technology. This place will remain intact even if it falls. Our main character did not decide to ask, but the girl said that the professor himself did not know what state the greenhouse was in, that the magic circles had completely destroyed everything, but the professor only asked to be silent. He said that it was the girl who couldn't say anything in his direction, because not only did she run away, but she was also going to make fun of the mage tower. She said that she would never let her go to the Mana Center. However, Kang only said that we need to evacuate people and take action now, and if this does not happen, then everything will only get worse. Of course, the professor didn't want to hear this, so he kicked me out of his office with a bang. Our main character, looking at the door, realized that he was strangely worried, but in the end this man was a quick death. It was thanks to our hero that this could be understood. As soon as our heroes left the office, the professor only sighed. He could not understand how much the people who had just been in his office knew. Can they know that the mana crystal is just broken? Had he really failed so badly in his duty? He knew that if others found out that he couldn't keep track of Chrysadalo, then he wouldn't be able to become a master, he would just drop out of the list. He knew that he should hide this fact until the very end. He thought that he would be able to enjoy it quietly as soon as he became a master. However, as he thought about it, his wall began to crumble with force. At first, he couldn't understand what was happening, but only then did the wall explode. All the stones fell on the professor. He was covered with rocks and couldn't move. He tried to use mana, but the mana charge just bounced off of him. The professor started shouting for help. The old man thought that no one would come to his aid, but at the same moment he heard the voice of our hero, who said that the professor had warned him about what might happen. Of course, the professor started to say that he was at the moment when he wanted to apologize. He asked the doctor to come and help him, but he just smiled and asked why he should listen to his advice. He knew that the mana crystal was currently emitting too much mana, so if this continued, Yuya Tower would be reduced to rubble. Our protagonist knew that the person in front of him wasn't even listening to him, even though he was warning him. He knew that the only reason he had changed his mind was because he was about to die. The old man was actually lying on the floor and begging to be saved. But Kang only said that he was too busy to help out here and waste precious time on it. He immediately started saying that if the professor had something valuable on him, then he might consider it. The professor gritted his teeth and said that he still has what our main character thinks. The professor immediately took out the key to the tower's mana center. He said that if our main character saved him, the key would be his. If he really wants to save people. They had a long dialogue, so our protagonist could only smile and understand that such pieces of what lies under the stones in front of him, why they are generally aiming for masters. Did the time of the tower come to an end? At the same time, Kang said that he forgot to say one thing, but more precisely, that now all the defensive walls have fallen for the mana center, so he doesn't need the key. He said that the professor can forget about saving. The professor immediately dropped the key in his hand, a hopeless expression on his face, and his key fell out of his hands. He immediately began to writhe in pain and yell that he could give our character absolutely anything he wanted, that he could give him anything he wanted. But he only asked if it was true. After all, if this is all true, then he might come back later, after saving the people that the professor himself was supposed to be protecting. After all, if he is so kind, then he can wait for you. By the time Kang stepped out, the entire area behind him was blown up. He knew there were other places to take care of. He knew he needed to take a look at the situation from different angles. By the time he was running down the hall, he could hear a high-pitched cry. He walked on and saw that they were children who were crying. Kang immediately walked up to them and asked what had happened to them. But at the same time, the children started pointing at the boulders and crying, saying that their friend was there. The children did not speak further. They could not explain the reason for their concern, but it was also clear that they needed to use their skills. He immediately opened up his skills and noticed that one of his skills was able to evolve. Now he could calm people down with his voice while removing the anxiety. Kang realized that this evolution was the result of him gaining a bit of divine power. He immediately used this ability on the children and asked them to calm down and tell everything from the very beginning. At the same time, the children said that they were doing the three of them, but then suddenly the walls and ceiling began to explode and collapse everywhere. The third child who couldn't get out used the barrier to help the others get out. They ran away, but the other child didn't. Kang came to the place near the bookshelf and noticed that there was a child lying there. She could talk. She was alive, so at the same time our main character started asking her questions. The girl couldn't answer, she was just talking nonsense. Our protagonist looked at her with his own eyes and realized that she was bleeding, her bones were broken. He realized that this person is the exact opposite of the professor who died, because it was the girl who sacrificed himself for the sake of friends. By this point, our main protagonist has already activated his skill on the girl who asked not to touch her. She thought that the doctor would also get a stroke, but for some reason, everything became fine. Kang was smiling and talking about being a healer, so there was no need to worry about such trifles. That's how this video ends. If you have sat through to the end, please don't forget to press the subscribe button and leave feedback. See you in the next video.